приходит в регион, говорит: регион, мне нужна инфраструктура. Или в институты развития. Мне нужна инфраструктура. И, как правило, по средним проектам, по нашим меркам, ну там до 10 миллиардов рублей, грубо говоря, и регионы, и институты развития различные, федеральные, идут навстречу и помогают, делают эту инфраструктуру. А тут государство говорит: знаете, вы сами найдите деньги, сами сделайте, а мы потом из ваших будущих налогов вам компенсируем. То есть модель не лучше. Модель лучше для каких-нибудь новотеков, которые строят огромнейший завод там где-нибудь там в Сибири, да, и ему это интересно. А всем, кому помельче, как бы хуже, они должны найти деньги и отвлечь деньги у себя. А так сейчас это делает им регион, либо там институты развития. Поэтому тоже спорная история, на самом деле.
Мне что не понравилось в этой статье, которую я читал, в Владимирской области планируется открыть, там какой-то инвестор, забыл фамилию уже, там планирует открыть крупнейшее в мире производство аммиака и карбамида. То есть это наш прямой конкурент, крупнейший в мире. Вот. Я просто не знаю, вот у нас Куйбышев, Азот, Тольятти, Азот в курсе таких планов. То есть если это все воплотится в жизнь, государство софинансирует фактически часть этих вещей. А нам же надо у себя это все...
Никому нашему завод не нужен. Аммиакопровод интересен. Доставка. Сделать завод не трудно.
Сейчас небольшой вводный инструктаж, да, Макс? У нас идет прямой эфир. У нас будут работать средственные камеры, одна общий план и две камеры по бокам, которые будут брать крупно вашу показывать каждый штрих. На данных планах у нас будет выводиться непосредственно Zoom, то есть не прямая трансляция зрителей, это Zoom для вашего удобства, что здесь мы видим качественно, хорошо презентацию и ваших коллег по скайпу. Соответственно, периодически будет вводиться так, как показывается эфир. То есть где-то вы будете видеть сами себя, испугаетесь, то есть это мы просто показываем, как это перед вами выглядит. За вами экран, непосредственно там будет в основное время крутиться заставка данная, и когда будет показывать Дмитрий Игоревич, мы выведем его для коллег-журналистов. Потом мы уберем, снова появится непосредственно заставка. Если у вас есть презентации свои личные, они запускаются с компьютеров, кликер на тумбочке, можно его будет взять и попользоваться. Если у вас презентация PowerPoint, проблем не будет. Если она PDF, то там, к сожалению, у вас обработки, соответственно, Дима будет сам руководить, вы просто можете говорить следующий слайд, если такая необходимость возникнет. Но он будет слушать и стараться под вас все. В целом мы готовы.
Вопрос. Наши микрофоны всегда включены или они включаются по...
Ваши микрофоны всегда включены, вас всегда видно. То есть даже если в эфире YouTube вас не показывают, то в Zoom вас может быть видно. Поэтому всегда нарядные, красивые, улыбающиеся и включенные в беседу.
Молчащий.
Все, представляете, говорят, учинили, все уже принято. Сейчас я уточняю технический момент режиссера, и, в принципе, мы готовы начинать.
Ну да. В общем, лишнего даже шепотом не говорим. Алексей, да? Правильно? Вопроски. Так.
Коллеги, еще раз. Сейчас начинаем. Буквально 30 секунд начала. Здесь будет вводиться у нас непосредственно прямой эфир. То есть вы видите сейчас заставку. Дорогие зрители, 3, 2, 1, отбивка. И, собственно говоря, после этого можно начинать. Удачи всем, хорошего дня.
Ну что, добрый день, доброе утро, как кому угодно, уважаемые дамы и господа. Если кто-то не прочитал на заставке, мы в эфире.
Haven't seen that
Это
in Scream
Volga Investment Summit
on air.
2020.
This is Volga Investment Summit
Ключевая
2020,
тема саммита
and
«Точки
our
роста,
key topic
государство и
is
бизнес-партнерство».
points,
Мы на
government,
пленарном заседании,
partnership.
и пленарное
Setting
заседание
up
тоже
our
имеет свою тему.
session.
Она звучит как «Инвестиции в изменившемся мире,
Post-change world,
время
time of
технологий,
technology,
новые точки роста
growth points in the
в
region.
регионах». Меня зовут Алексей
My name is
Бобровский,
Alexei
руководитель службы экономических программ канала «Россия-24». Буду модерировать
Talk
эту
on
сессию,
the-
постараюсь, чтобы и вам было интересно, ну и
So we will
Если
try
нужно будет как-то нашим спикерам помочь, тоже эту функцию буду на себя брать. Что касается
to assist.
того, почему мы здесь собрались,
Why
да, ну,
are we
наверное, вы видите, что ковид
Probably
влияет на нашу жизнь со всех сторон. Даже формат нашего саммита
even the
говорит о том,
format
что
of our
мы уже
summit
немножко в новом измерении находимся. Для меня это
already in the
практически телевизионный формат, потому что часть спикеров у нас находятся
format. Some
онлайн, они
speakers
к
are
нам сейчас подключились, часть спикеров находится здесь в зале. То есть это такое синтетическое искусство, я бы даже так это назвал,
I would
поскольку на все сферы жизни нашей ковид повлиял, и на бизнес,
all of the
и
spheres,
на простых
including
людей, и на, конечно, инвестиционные процессы. Мы все это
investment
сегодня
processes.
обсудим.
We're
О
going to
перспективах
cover all
поговорим, поговорим о том, какие вызовы стоят. Ну и,
prospects about
конечно,
challenges we're
все-таки
facing,
кризис — это пора возможностей.
prices,
Так все-таки умные люди
opportunities.
рассуждают. Поэтому у этих самых возможностей мы
We are
тоже
going
несколько
to
слов скажем.
about
В нашей
these
пленарной
possibilities.
сессии
Well,
присутствуют очень авторитетные
we
спикеры,
are
поэтому я
joined
их всех
by
представлю.
very
Вот и
representative
губернатор
speakers.
Самарской области тоже подключился,
We
Дмитрий
have
Азаров.
here
Я
the
с ним
governor of
начну
the Samara region,
представление.
Dmitry Igorovich Azarov.
Кроме того, это Аркадий Дворкович,
We
председатель
have
фонда
Arkady
Сколково,
Dvorkovich, the CEO
Олег
of Skolkovo
Теплов, генеральный
Foundation.
директор
We have
Web
Oleg Teplov,
Ventures,
CEO of
Наталья
Web Ventures.
Трунова,
We have Natalia
вице-президент,
Trunova,
руководитель
the VP
направления
and head
пространственное
for
развитие
spatial
Фонда
development
Центра
of the
стратегических
Strategic
разработок.
Research
Михаил Баженов,
Center.
партнер,
We
руководитель
have
практики
Mikhail
по работе
Bazhenov,
с компаниями
the
в сфере
partner and head of practice
инфраструктурного и
for
проектного
infrastructural and
финансирования
product financing
PwC Russia.
of
Денис
PricewaterhouseCoopers
Журавский,
Russia.
исполнительный директор
We have Denis
Ассоциации
Zhuravsky,
индустриальных
CEO
парков,
of Association of
Максим
Industrial
Ткаченко,
Parks. We have Maxim
исполнительный директор
Tkachenko, the
автономной
executive
некоммерческой
director of
организации Национальный
ANO,
центр
National
развития
Center for Development
государственно-частного
of Public-Private
партнерства.
Partnership.
Денис
We
Аграфенин,
have
заместитель
Denis
главного
Agrafenin,
инженера
the
Куйбышевской
acting
железной дороги,
head engineer
филиал
of Kuybyshev
ООО
Railways,
«РКД».
the branch
Нина
of Russian
Яникина,
Railways. We
ректор
have Nina
автономной
Yanikina,
некоммерческой
rector of
организации
University
«Университет
2035.
2035». Евгений
We have
Борисов,
Evgeny
партнер
Borisov, the
Камафлоу,
partner of
управляющей
Kamaflow,
компании
the
венчурного
managing
фонда
company of the Venture
Национальной
Foundation of the National
технологической
Technological
инициативы.
Initiative.
Иван Федотов,
We have
директор
Ivan Fedotov,
Ассоциации
the director of
инновационных
Association
регионов
of
России.
Innovative Regions of Russia.
Виктор Кудряшов,
We have
первый
Viktor Kudryashov, the
вице-губернатор,
first vice
председатель
governor
правительства
and the
Самарской
head
области.
of
Дмитрий
and
Богданов,
the chairman
министр
of the
экономического
government of
развития
the Samara
и
region.
инвестиций
Dmitry
Самарской
Bogdanov,
области.
Minister of
Вот
Economic
состав у нас
Development
очень
and
авторитетный,
Investment
но меня
of the
больше
Samara
беспокоит,
region.
что
So you can see, despite the quarantine, has found the possibility of joining us online. Dmitry Igorovich, can you hear us?
Да, спасибо большое. Я вас хорошо
Thank you very
слышу,
much.
слышите ли
I
вы
can
меня?
hear you perfectly, and so can we.
Да, спасибо. Я
Thank you.
рад всех приветствовать.
I'm ever so glad to
И,
welcome
конечно
you
же,
and
уважаемые участники, гости
dear
Волжского
colleagues, dear
инвестиционного
guests
форума.
of the Volga Investment
Очень
Summit.
рад, что этот
I'm
форум,
very glad
несмотря на
that,
определенные ограничения,
despite some restrictions and limitations, this forum still takes place here in Samara. Last year, we had guests from 22 countries, from 16 regions of Russia, and 27 cities of Russia. This year, due to the very understandable reasons, we have changed the format of our event, and this very important combination of business and even festive events has been taking place in an online format. So we are still working on establishing links in financial and investment spheres. We are working with developmental institutions and many others. The Samara region is one of the leading regions of Russia in major directions of investment activities that we're going to discuss during our summit. We are bringing together international and Russian businessmen and industrial experts, representatives of legislative and executive authorities. The basic agenda includes key topics on the pandemic, and we will be glad to hear to the opinion of our experts and their suggestions as to managerial and administrative decision-making in this complicated context. And of course, we're going to have some specialized points on investments. We will be speaking about searching for new niches for investment, for developing the public-private partnership, venture investment, using best practices of leaders of investment market, improvement of efficiency of And today, it is extremely important to adapt to the fast-changing reality of the world, and in that way to support the economy of the country. Of course, the coronavirus epidemic affected the activities of investment. It is difficult to forecast how the growth rates of the international economy will restore, but the crisis situation for a business, well, they happen in the business and sometimes regularly. So the skill of the business is to overcome them. Today, we will discuss the efficiency of operation and transparency of operation of government institutions in distributing the the public finance. We will be speaking about steps in the general national plan of activities, in the normalization of business activities, in bringing the employment back to normal, in stabilizing the situation and providing the foundation for long-term positive changes in the Russian economy, considering the current context. Of course, the pandemic brought some aggravating factors, but the coronavirus has not stopped the activities of the regional government, the organs of self-governance in bringing the investors and assistance in implementing the investment projects. The measures of state support for investment project is implemented fully and in a timely manner. We are working on 8 investment projects with a total amount of investment of 30.5 billion rubles. So we can give some examples here, including Ferroni in Togliatti, which is planning to start their production facility within this year with a creation of with approximately 2,000 new jobs. We have a starting project of the Russian Post, which will provide approximately 1,000 of new jobs. So God be thanked that we have such projects in a number of sectors of economy. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am pleased that we have a story to tell. And I'm sure that in some specialized forums, on some special occasions and events, these projects will be given in more detail. We are developing new projects for new technologies, for new industrial and sectoral practices. We are supporting new innovative projects and startup, which will be implemented together with Kuybyshev Railways. This is a brand new method of cooperation with an industrial partners, and here we are blazing the trail for the whole Russia. We will be aiming our work at eliminating the administrative barriers in creating a favorable taxation regime and many others. The state declares high interest to infrastructural investment projects and looks in this sphere as something with a large multiplication factor and as drivers for the economy on the whole. The Samara region is one of the technological centers of Russia. The region has a very strong scientific school and high industrial potential. We are ready to share our practices and to learn the best experience of other regions. The region has the necessary infrastructure for innovative activities. It has territories of advanced social and economic development, the special economic zone, the techno parks, the industrial parks. Today we are creating 4.6% of innovative product of the country and 11.5% of innovative product in the Volga Federal District. In producing the innovative product, we are ranking 4th in the Volga Federal District and 9th in Russia. In May 2019, the Samara region created the Scientific Educational Center Engineering for the Future. 1 year of its operation made it an interregional center. And you can see some of the regions of the country which are engaged in the operations of the Scientific Educational Center. Some of our anchor partners include Russian Railways, Rostechnology, and Roscosmos. The Scientific and Educational Center is preparing for the contest of the Ministry of Science and Education for making available grants for world-class scientific centers. Even though these centers were identified last year, but it is our experience of our regional scientific educational center is considered by the ministry to be the most feasible one. And when we have an interregional scientific and education center, its path is now considered as the optimal path, and we are very glad that our experience is taken on by other colleagues. The level of development of infrastructure is confirmed by the high positions of the region in terms of public-private partnership. For the third year in a row, we are ranked first in terms of development of PPP in the country. In the past 2 previous years, we've been ranking 4th or 6th, but by the results of last year, we've been the first in the country. I am convinced that the Volga Investment Summit 2020 will become a very important stimulus to activate our activities. This is what we are aiming at, and we hope that we will be a success. We hope that the work of the summit will be very intense, that your agenda will be packed, and that we will be able to see new contacts and new projects, and that we will be able to provide proper support to them in the Samara region. So may I wish that success attend you in your operation on the summit and in the implementation of your projects. Thank you.
Спасибо большое. Спасибо, Дмитрий Игоревич.
Thank you, Dmitry Igorevich. This was Dmitry Azarov, the governor of the Samara region. So, I would like to move on to specific topics. First of them is digital transformation. This seems to be rather a broad topic, but on the other hand, this is a very specific, very down-to-earth topic. And this can be divided into 2 parts. First is what concerns ordinary people. Well, you see that we have less banknotes and cash, and we have more transactions done with a plastic card. And on the other hand, there are infrastructural questions which concern the quality of communications. Some tools which can be scaled up not only to large cities, but to a number of regions, in obtaining permits for various kinds of activities, in issuing some documents, in providing digital services to the people. So these are some of the things that really need our attention. On the other hand, we need to speak about the infrastructure. This is my first visit to the Samara region, but sometimes you have a situation, which I hope is not the case in Samara, that when you leave the city and as soon as you go to the country, you have no mobile phone coverage. I think it will be high time to give the floor to Arkady Dvorkovich, CEO of Skolkovo. Digital transformation of Russia. Do we need it? How can we assist it? Are we going the right way? Are we going with the right tempo? The floor is yours.
Если вы меня слышите, микрофончик там включите, мне кажется, вот в программе нужно особенно...
Да, теперь включил, потому что до этого организатор мне не разрешал этого делать. Еще раз приветствую всех участников Волжского инвестиционного форума.
May I welcome all the participants of the Volga Investment Summit. Mr. Azarov, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity of being with you. Nevertheless, we are all here. Skolkovo Foundation today is at the forefront of implementing the programs of digital transformation. And I'm not only speaking about the projects which are implemented only in Moscow or inside our innovation center in the Moscow region. We are working across the whole country, and this is our priority. We believe that in such a great country, which is rich in people and rich in resources, we really need to deploy the best practices throughout the entire territory of the country. We have about 2,500 startups which are implemented in a variety of projects which are some way or the other connected with digital transformation. They operate in 69 regions of the country, and they work with assistance of 16 regional operators, one of which is in Samara, and this is the Zhiguli Valley Technopark, a very successful technopark, might I say, which employs which works with about 50 of our companies and startups, implementing some very interesting projects. May I also say that there is a direct relation between the large investment projects that we've been referring to, implemented by Russian railways and other large companies, and there is also a large number of startups which support these big projects. Any big investment includes hundreds of small technological solutions, and more of them will be implemented by Russian companies. I will give you a simple example of the Kerch Bridge, a project worth hundreds of billions of rubles. And, the system of video surveillance was created by a company which is a resident of the Zhiguli Valley Technopark. So their video surveillance system ensures safety of these large infrastructural projects. There are some companies working with automation of industrial processes, in the agricultural complex, for example, in fire safety systems, and so on and so forth. I can give more examples. You've been referring to the solutions which are closer to the people. Well, everywhere we have these small projects which in some way or the other are implemented by startups and larger companies. This includes biometry, video analytics, cybersecurity, wireless communication, including 5G communications. Then there are systems which stimulate and assist faster treatment of the new coronavirus infection, development of new medicines which are developed with digital technology in mind. What we still might improve is the tools of state support of the investment plans and the capacities which are held by large investors in large companies, and the funnel of startups in the great number of small technological companies which were created with the assistance of the Skolkovo foundations and independently, and with the assistance of the regional leverage tools. We need to unlock the undisclosed potential of the digital economy project, and I really like it that we were able to make an agreement with the Samara region on the co-financing of implementing the technological developments. We will be providing micro grants to the Samara region, and 25% of financing will be given by the Samara region. So in this way, we will be able to speed up the development of digital technology in Samara, as is the case in other regions of the country. And this is no small matter. This spells literally thousands of jobs. Only in the Samara region it is 40,000 new jobs. We are only in the first steps in Samara, but in the nearest 3 or 5 years we will be reaching billions of dollars worth of projects and thousands of jobs in Samara. And this is not just just nice picture that I'm drawing. Skolkovo Foundation is turning 10 years, and our cooperation is 10 years, and we are hoping for continued cooperation. We are ready to support and be supported when we need it. So,
спасибо
best of
большое.
luck to all
Да,
of you.
спасибо, Аркадий Владимирович. Здоровья тоже. Продолжим
Thank you so
тему
much, and,
технологий,
let's
которые
continue
меняют
the
жизнь
technology
людей
topic,
к лучшему. И
the
в целом
technologies that
хочется
change
сейчас вот
lives
такой
of people
трек
to the
отдельный
better.
запустить,
And I'd
про
like to launch
города поговорить, о том, как
another,
в городе за счет
section,
вот этих
and
новых технологий,
let's talk
а
about
безусловно
cities and the technologies
дополнительный
that enable
импульс
us to
им
change cities and
коронавирус
transform.
дал, еще что-то,
And
греха таить,
obviously COVID-19
может меняться
provided
жизнь
us with
людей,
additional,
меняться, надеюсь, к лучшему.
impetus for
Вот.
change,
Но по
to the
городам
better.
здесь
Speaking of
вообще, знаете,
cities,
такое наблюдение
and towns,
чисто
the
может быть,
observation
журналистское или
or my
такое
observation,
житейское,
that of,
особенно на
reporters,
Дальнем
people
Востоке, в некоторых
that
городах
refers,
бывал,
I
в
refer to
Владивосток ездил,
specifically the Far Eastern
обычно
Russia.
разговариваю с
I've been
людьми,
to,
вот
many
водителя
cities in the Far
спрашиваю,
East, Vladivostok being one of them,
как
and I speak to
обстановка,
people,
как
and,
живется.
I
Ну,
ask
он
them how they
рассказывает,
are,
что
how
очень
they're
хочется
doing,
там
and
уехать,
the
например, с
what the
Дальнего
situation is.
Востока.
And many people tell me
Ему и
that,
супруге.
they
Я
wanna
говорю,
leave,
почему? Вот
like
что?
particular people,
Я понимаю, что он
their
говорит не
spouses,
то, из-за
etc.
чего человек,
They
собственно,
tell me
собирается
that
уезжать.
it's
Но
not-
вот первое, что у него срывается с языка,
First off,
вот, понимаете,
they talk about the reasons
остановки и
they mention,
плохие автобусы. Вот, казалось бы,
include
мелочь. Вот, казалось бы, это не самое главное в жизни. Но вот людей окружающая среда, то есть город, беспокоит. Это, еще раз говорю, не то, что им мешает в жизни, но это может создавать абсолютно такую негативную картинку. Кстати, скажу про Самару, здесь вот многие хвалят, например, дороги. Это я не к тому, чтобы польстить и похвалить руководство региона, но даже вот вчера, добравшись сюда, с водителем разговаривал на эту тему. Он говорит, многие хвалят, вот приезжают из Москвы, говорят, а у вас дороги неплохие. То есть это вот то, что касается городского пространства. Но что касается технологий и их участия в городском пространстве, здесь нужно поговорить отдельно. Хотел бы к нашему разговору Олега Теплова подключить, это генеральный директор Web Ventures, фонд, который создан в ВПРФ специально для инвестиций в технологические проекты. И вот разговор, конечно, про умный город, мне кажется, с таким фондом продолжить и стоит. Олег, здравствуйте, слышите ли вы меня? На что сейчас нужно обратить внимание? Хороший ли момент, учитывая, что как раз технологии сейчас на виду? Какие у вас мысли по поводу улучшения городского пространства?
Спасибо большое. Добрый день, коллеги. Дмитрий Игоревич, Аркадий Владимирович, рад всех вас видеть на этой виртуальной самарской земле. Буквально месяц назад были саммитом и протестировали и дороги, и Urban Tech в реальном мире. Вы знаете, это очень интересная тема, которую мы затронули, и скажем так, переходя плавно от выступлений моих коллег, Игоревича и Аркадия Владимировича, который говорил, что решения, близкие к людям, интегрируются с крупными инфраструктурными проектами, мы как раз и начерчиваем рамку так называемого Urban Tech или
We're into urban tech and smart city projects now, and indeed these are fast evolving issues, projects that has been actually supported and spearheaded by the lockdown, the pandemic. Obviously, it's aimed at digitalization of urban systems. We see these processes that actually take place and that are closely related with urban administrations and development institutes. These are the products and services that are aimed at the improvement of the living standards of people, of living standards. This is something that people face, each and every citizen of the city faces whenever they make online purchases or hail a ride, taxi ride, or whenever they want to check on their bus timetable. So these are the things that make life of thousands of citizens more comfortable. And these are the issues like, you mentioned, for example, you mentioned Vladivostok, people in Vladivostok that wanted to leave the city.
I believe these are the technologies that help eliminate these issues and these
Если
problems.
говорить о
Speaking
внедрении
of
такого
the
рода
implementation of
сервисов,
such
то это не
services,
просто
it's not
какая-то
just
функция.
a
Это
function.
целый набор
We're talking about a set of
компаний.
companies.
Иногда это конгломерат,
Sometimes
иногда
these are
это
conglomerates.
просто большая компания,
Sometimes we're
которая
talking about large
благодаря
companies that,
аккумуляции больших
thanks to
данных,
accumulation of big
могут
data,
заниматься и
they're
предиктивной
able
аналитикой,
to do
позволять
preventive analytics.
улучшать качество
They can
услуг,
improve
экспериментировать
service
иногда,
quality,
создавая новые
experiment
возможности для
by,
людей.
and
И
thereby create new opportunities for
помогая
people. And
и администрациям городов, и
in this
компаниям
way, they help
большим,
the
которые делают
urban administrations
инфраструктурные
and large
проекты в
companies that
городах,
that
такие
are
как
involved in infrastructure projects like
транспортная логистика,
transport logistics,
строительство,
construction.
понимать точки
They
притяжения людей в
understand
городе,
the attraction points for
системы
people,
геоаналитики,
geoanalytics,
видеонаблюдения
systems, video surveillance
показывают,
systems.
где наибольшие
They show us where
места притяжения в городе и куда,
the
может быть,
attraction
нужно
points are located within the city,
городским властям
and
обратить
where
внимание
urban
и развивать
authorities,
то или
city
иное
authorities
направление.
should
Говоря
develop,
о
should pay more
принимающем
attention.
городе или принимающем регионе
Speaking of a host city,
Самаре,
Samara,
мы видим, как
can see
развивается
how
активный город
the city has been
с
actively
внедрением или введением в
evolving and
действие
developing.
набережных и технологий, которые
For
там
example, the
присутствуют.
embankments or the
Это
technologies
место
that are there. This is
притяжения
the
жителей,
focal point, the
это
attraction
те
point for the locals
локации, где
as
можно
well as
развивать и
visitors.
тестировать
This is where we
цифровые
can test
сервисы, где
and
можно
deploy and test
применять
digital
ту
services, where we can
инфраструктуру
develop the infrastructure,
цифровую и вводить новые
digital infrastructure, and where we
новые
can
системы.
deploy new systems.
Но это
But
только одна часть.
this is just one
Это
part.
то, что
This
можно
is what
увидеть
we can
в
actually
реальности в городе,
see
но
in
есть
real
и
life
другие цифровые сервисы,
within a city,
которые
but there are other
помогают
digital services that help
жителю
local
не просто комфортно себя
the
ощущать, но и
locals not just feel comfortable, but
заботиться о своем
also
здоровье,
enables them to care
об
about
обучении и так далее. Например, внедрение
their health,
прорывных
etc.
решений
For
или
example,
технологий в
digital
ЖКХ
technologies
позволяет людям
and house
моментально
and
отправить заявки на проведение
utilities, for example,
работ
it helps
у
people
себя в доме. Будь то это свет,
about
вода
their utilities at home, for
или
example, whether
другие
it's
какие-то
water or heating or
вещи.
other
Можно
issues.
заказывать автомобильные
People can
пропуска,
order
можно управлять умными
bus
паркингами
passes, you can
или
manage
со своими
smart
управляющими
parkings
компаниями.
or
Интернет вещей,
utility
как
companies. The
развитие которого
IoT, the Internet of Things,
интересно для государства, так
is
и
a
для
very
бизнеса,
interesting trend for
повысит
both business
и
and
позволит повысить
public
общественную
authorities. It
безопасность и
helps improve
снизить уровень
public
смертности
safety and
на дорогах.
security. It helps
И в
reduce
целом
mortality
сделать
rates,
жизнь
traffic mortality.
лучше.
It makes
Если мы
helps
говорим
make life
о
better.
влиянии как раз
Speaking
ковид
of the
пандемии
influence of the pandemic
на горожан,
on the
то здесь
locals,
можно отметить такие
we can
сервисы,
mention the
как
services like
телемедицина,
telemedicine,
консультации
consulting
и
services, remote
наша
consulting,
портфельная компания,
and our portfolio
доктор рядом,
companies,
которая за карантин
Doctor
провела
next to you.
свыше 200
The
тысяч
company held
консультаций,
over
обращений,
2,000
причем только
consultations,
треть
online
из них была
consultations. Only a third
направлена на
was, of which a
исключительно
third
ковид, а
had
остальные
to do with the COVID-19,
были
and others were
узкоспециализированными.
actually highly
И в
specialized
Самаре тоже мы
consultations. In Samara, we
ощущали рост
have been able to witness the
таких
growth of
заявок.
such applications for
Сейчас
such
внедряются
consultations.
эти телемедицинские
The
услуги в систему УМР.
telemedicine
Эта
services are now
инициатива
being
поддерживается
actively
и
developed
региональными властями,
MRS.
и мы
It's being
запускаем
supported by the
пилотные
local
проекты
authorities, and we're
в
launching
нескольких
pilot
регионах.
projects in a
В
number of
двух
regions. In
регионах
2
идет
regions,
полная интеграция,
there's
и
full-fledged integration into
с
regions, and
департаментами
together with
здравоохранения в
the
Самаре мы
Department
тоже
of Healthcare of Samara
ведем
region,
этот
we
диалог.
are also
Или
in
мы
tight
возьмем компанию
cooperation with
Alpha
them.
Open,
Speaking of Alpha
являющимся
Open,
резидентом фонда
this company
Сколково,
is
которая
a Skolkovo
разрабатывает умные
Foundation residence.
интегрированные
They
решения для
develop smart
мониторинга
integration
и управления
solutions for
зданиями,
the
домами,
management of
большими
houses,
территориями.
large territories, for
Весь
example.
наш комплекс
The entire
Большой
complex,
Сколково
Greater
фонда
Skolkovo of the
управляется этой
foundation
компанией.
is managed by this
Это
company.
помогает
This helps
жителям ощутить себя
residents
более безопасно.
feel more safe, more
И
secure and safe.
в завершении хочется
And to
сказать,
conclude, I'd
что
like to
для нас
say
важно,
that
что
for us it's
опыт,
important that the experience
реализации
experience in
проектов
implementing
тех,
projects
которые
like
есть
these
в городах,
urban
мы
projects,
готовы и можем
we're ready
тиражировать в другие регионы.
ready and able to
Понимая,
extrapolate
какие
to other
лучшие
cities and other
практики
regions.
сейчас
Understanding what best practices
можно
we can
сразу тиражировать, а для
immediately
каких
extrapolate and
нужно
copy-paste.
подготовить тот
We
или
also
иной
understand
город,
what
тот или иной регион.
we understand the cities where there's some preparation
И
work
это как раз
required.
является одной из
So this
наших
is one
задач,
of the
большой
challenges for
программы.
us. We have this major project, Web has this major project for the development of urban economy. So we believe Smart City project will help improve living standards and the quality of life of each and every resident. And speaking of the investment that public investments made by the institutions of development, both investments in startups and major projects, we believe this will be felt by regular people. So we hope that the regions will also help make an impact. And I'd like to wish you all productive and fruitful work during the summit, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Ну, в Самарскую область инвестируйте больше. Да, фонд есть, соответственно, проекты у вас есть. Давайте сюда деньги. Давайте дальше о городах поговорим. Наталью Трунову, вице-президент, руководитель направления пространственное развитие Фонда Центра стратегических разработок, хотел бы к разговору подключить. Ну, тема пространственного развития, несмотря на то, что людям непосвященным кажется не очень понятным словосочетанием, очень интересная. Достаточно почитать писателей-фантастов или послушать, что они говорят. То есть крупные города, агломерация — это, в общем, будущее устройство в страновом, в мировом масштабе, как я понимаю. От этого никто не отказывается, наоборот, все больше и больше к этому склоняются. То есть большие города, которые в этом смысле имеют такое вот какое-то унитарное устройство, то есть сами себя всем обеспечивают, или агломерации, это вот и есть, наверное, наше будущее. Ну ладно, это бы только экономика и потребности. Важно же говорить о нуждах людей. И в этом смысле пространственное развитие, видимо, несколько иное преломление имеет вот это словосочетание. Я предлагаю об этом сейчас поговорить. Какие новые возможности вот уже сейчас есть? Назовем это в постковидную эпоху, хотя она еще не закончилась, пока она не постковидная. Но, тем не менее, может быть, уже что-то намечается. Наталья, здравствуйте. Вас к разговору подключаю. Слышите ли вы нас?
Good morning, Natalia. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me.
Пока.
Сейчас, подождите секундочку. Да, у вас микрофончик включен?
Нет.
Не слышим у вас. Я думаю, что и вам нужно нажать на микрофончик, или у нас коллеги должны что-то нажать. Да, нажмете? Вот, прекрасно. Ура.
Всем, уважаемые люди, спасибо большое за приглашение, уважаемые друзья, коллеги. Да, конечно, у нас постковидная эпоха еще не началась, у нас идет ковидная эпоха, хотя, в принципе, уже можно делать некоторые выводы по отношению к тому, как мы будем жить дальше, и мы считаем, что
and in the future, in the near future. So
the change that
the changes that are taking place actually their foundation took place here quite some time ago, even before the COVID-19. So these changes are forming this new foundation, this new landscape for the spatial changes and spatial development. Speaking of the negative aspects of the pandemic that the cities have already experienced, especially cities that were focused on communications, business centers, tourist centers, all the centers, let's say transport hubs. It's clear that during the pandemic, we witnessed reduction in or a slowdown in economic activity, a slowdown in tourist traffic and people traffic, slowdown and reduction in tax inflows. Obviously, urban infrastructure is affected. So we have a lot of analytics as to what's happening in the cities. First and foremost, world's largest cities, and we can see that what we see is that the budget deficit that is planned for the next 2 to 3 years, both in European cities and North American cities, is quite obvious, is quite apparent. So these are we also realize that people are not going to be ready to pay for the services they used to pay for in the past. So here, this topic of smart technologies is becoming ever more important. This is something that helps us continue to implement savings, generally speaking. Going back to our situation, the gross added value topic in the largest agglomerations of Russia, we should mention that Russian cities
Ой, у нас звук пропал. Наталья, прям секундочку я вас
Muted,
прерву.
so
Прошу коллег помочь с налаживанием звука, потому что мы
make
вас не
sure our
слышим.
colleagues
Да.
do
Наталья,
something
слышите
so
ли
we
вы
can
нас?
hear you again. Can you hear us?
Не слышит нас
Наталья.
Наталья. Очень жаль. Я сейчас попрошу коллег
Let me ask
все-таки
my
сделать
colleagues
что-то
to
со
do
звуком.
something with
И
the
перед
sound, so
Натальей
here.
извиниться хочу.
And I wanna
Наверное, сейчас мы
apologize to
просто
Natalia.
перейдем к
2-3
следующему.
года.
Ой, Наталья, извините, ради бога, слышите ли вы
Какие
нас?
Apologies again.
актуализировались
So,
тенденции?
what
Не
trends
все
have become
хорошо
more
известны,
topical
мы
in
уже
pressing?
эфир
вот
слов.
так или иначе предыдущие
Ну, будем
спикеры
надеяться.
Previous speakers have
проговорили,
already
да,
mentioned some of them.
цифровизация. Да, конечно,
Digitalization, of course, is one
цифровизация
of the trends. Of
это
course,
ключевой
it's the
тренд,
key trend
который обсуждается
that
и
is being
реализуется
discussed and is being
последние
implemented and over the
несколько
past
лет
several
и
years has been implemented.
будет ключевым
And
трендом
it'll
на
continue
ближайшие
to be a
10,
key trend
на
for
ближайшие
the
10 лет.
next
Но если мы
decade.
возьмем даже
But
ту же
speaking
самую
of
торговлю,
trade and commerce, for instance,
если процент
if the
онлайн-торговли
percentage of online
был
sales, online
в
commerce,
районе там,
it used to be
6% до
around
начала
6%
пандемии у нас
before
в
the
Российской
pandemic. In the Russian
Федерации,
Federation, this was the
то
case.
вот за этот
In
очень-очень
this very short
короткий
period of time,
период рост онлайн-торговли
online
вырос
trade,
практически на
online
2%.
commerce grew
Да,
2%.
и по всей
And
видимости,
it's
сейчас
apparent
нас
that
ожидает очень
we expect,
серьезное,
we should,
это мы обсуждали
what concerns
недавно
these
на
cities,
сессии
many
с
online retailers,
как раз с представителями
as we
торговли
discussed
в
with representatives
регионы.
of regional trade.
Это
So
сектор,
they're
конечно,
expanding
будет
to regional
расти
cities.
и менять
So
в
this
том числе потребительские
segment,
привычки
this will be
горожан, а
changing
соответственно
consumer
будут возникать
behavior of
новые виды
the
объектов
citizens.
недвижимости. Это вот у нас
For example,
новый ток, да, это новая логистика,
the
это
implications will be new
новые
logistics,
торговые
new
площади в виде шоурумов,
shopping
в
space,
виде
like showrooms, like
переформатированных торговых центров и
reformatted
так далее, и так
shopping
далее. И в
malls,
принципе
etc.
сейчас
So
уже,
generally,
особенно крупным городам, нужно об этом
when it comes to large cities at
задуматься.
least, they should be thinking more about
Ключевой
that.
тренд –
The
это
key
даже не
trend, it's
медицина, а
not even
здоровье
medicine,
сбережения, потому что
it's
вот
health
мы видим
preservation, it's
и по
health-saving
анализу
technologies or
наших
trends. As we can witness, we can
уважаемых
see
представителей медицины, которые анализируют сейчас данные по
healthcare
ковиду,
representatives keen
и зарубежных, что
tell us about, obviously, the
ключевые
COVID-19 trends
группы
and
риска –
COVID-19
это
statistics.
люди с
The risk groups
хроническими
means
заболеваниями,
people with
с
chronic diseases,
избыточным
with
весом и так
excessive
далее, и
with
так
obesity.
далее. Сейчас
So
уже
we
вы
can
знаете, что многие города
say that
реформируют
many cities have been
реформируют свое пространство под
reforming their
этот новый
space
тип
for this
запроса. Вот я
new
всем говорю,
type of
даже
demand.
Милан, который
Even
с 2015 года
Milan,
заявил
Milano,
программу
they have
велосипедизации
been
и никак не мог,
implementing their bicycle program.
оглядываясь все время
And looking
на
back
автолобби, реализовать
at the automotive lobby,
вот эту программу.
they've been struggling to implement the bicycle program. So obviously people during the COVID-19 era, it seems like they'd be able to successfully finalize this program because Italy, despite the fact that it's an EU country,
То же самое, все,
obviously
что
the
касается
automotive
новых
lobby is quite
видов
powerful in this
здорового
country.
питания,
Speaking of
медицинских
healthy diet,
услуг, приборов, как
medical
медицинских для
devices, both
домашнего
medical devices
использования,
and
так
home
и для там,
consumer
очистки
medical
воздуха,
devices,
всего-всего-всего.
air purification
Это
systems and
ключевые
devices.
рынки,
Obviously,
которые
these are
сейчас
the key
растут и
markets
будут
that are
расти еще в
experiencing
ближайшие
growth,
10
and they will
лет.
continue
Даже
doing so
вот некоторые
in the next
наши
few years,
зарубежные
over the next few
коллеги
years.
утверждают, что
Our foreign
биотех,
colleagues
если
mentioned
что с
that
ним связано,
biotech
это,
and whatever has to do
собственно,
with
новый
biotech is
такой
this new
инновационный мыльный пузырь, который
innovative
будет
bubble
вздуваться. А
that
может быть,
will be
и
actually
именный, да, с
growing.
точки зрения вот
Maybe it's
этого
not a
новых
bubble, considering
видов
the
потребления.
new trends, consumer
И
trends.
еще один тренд – это
Yet another
осознанное
trend
потребление.
is
Мы
this
видим, как выбивает
conscious
такую
consumption.
быструю, как говорят, моду. Да? То
It's
есть
also
это не
enjoying
только
growth,
потому, что мы
and
сидим,
it's becoming a fashion
сидели
thing.
3 месяца
It's
дома
not
в
just
пижамах,
because
это
we've
еще
been sitting at
потому,
home
что
for the past 3 months in our pajamas.
растет уровень
It's also
экологического
has to do with the
образования,
fact that
люди
the environmental education or eco-education
начинают
is
осознанно
taken
относиться к тому,
shape,
что
taking
они
place.
потребляют, сколько
People are
они
now more
потребляют,
conscious
как это
about what they
влияет
consume,
на
as to what they
окружающую
consume, how
среду,
much they
что
consume,
они
their
оставляют детям
environmental
и
impacts,
так
their
далее. И
footprint
несмотря на то,
is
что
becoming more
вроде
and
бы
more of a
в
thing.
условиях
And despite
ковида шеринг
the
должен был
COVID-19
окончательно умереть, на самом деле вот очень мы видим, что
we can
даже вот
see that
опять же, если переместиться в
if we
этот
move to
топ, спрос, например, на
consumption,
того
the demand
или
for co-working
на
centers,
взаимодействие, но
or
с обеспечением полных условий
for
безопасности,
when it comes to
наоборот,
ensuring
начинает расти.
safety and security.
Собственно,
That
те рынки, да,
demand is
которые
now
вот
growing.
тоже коллеги уже
So,
говорили,
referring to the markets
городские,
that
то есть
my
города,
colleagues
и
have already mentioned,
как
urban
формируют спрос
technologies,
на новые технологии,
cities,
именно так и являются площадками
they
для
form,
разворачивания
they
новых
shape
видов деятельности.
the demand for new
И как
technologies,
раз вот
and
этот вот
this
там смарт-сити, умный город,
smart city
это не только,
is not
конечно, место
just
внедрения
a
вот этих новых
place for the
технологических
implementation
пакетов,
of
это
these
еще
new
и возможность
technological packages, but it's also a chance
формирования,
to shape
собственно, новых
new
видов экономической
types of
деятельности.
economic activity.
Безусловно, у нас Самарская
Obviously,
область
Samara
один из
region is
лидеров.
one of the leading
Важно
regions,
двигаться дальше,
and it's
важно
important to move on,
обеспечить, конечно же,
to
мировую
continue that, and to
конкурентоспособность
ensure
тем
world-class
не только инфраструктурам, но и тем
capabilities, and not just for
компаниям,
the
да,
structures, but also
которые
for the companies
будут расти и
that
развиваться.
will
Вот сколько
continue
там
evolving and growing.
технологических лидеров через 5 лет возникнет в
So,
Самарской области.
5 years from now, I'm sure Samara will have
И
a number
говорит
of
об
new
успехе вот
leaders,
этих всех
and
мероприятий.
this testifies to the
Сейчас, что
success
мы
of all these
наблюдаем,
initiatives. What we can
структура
witness
инновационной
now in the
деятельности
structure of
крайне расширена в наших
innovative
городах, но
infrastructure,
она
it's quite
разрознена и, как правило,
apparent in the cities,
подчинена
but it's
ведомственным задачам. Те города,
so the
которые
cities
сейчас соберут не резервации для инноваций, а экосистемы инновационной
that are the
деятельности
ecosystems for innovative activity, or
научных
in the
кварталов,
shape
вот здесь пример
of R&D
Копенгагена,
quarters, for
и
example.
карта с ключевыми
We can see the
инновационными
map for
кварталами,
key
которые ведет Мировая
innovative
ассоциация
quarters,
инновационных кварталов. Или в виде
or
каких-то
in the
других
shape
форм,
of
и
some other
окажутся в
forums,
ближайшие
and
15-20
in the
лет
next 15
такими
to 20 years,
точками
they
и
will become these points
драйверами,
for
собственно, этого
the drivers
развития.
for developments, urban development.
Но проблема в том,
But
что
the problem
сейчас плотность
is
инновационной
that the density
деятельности
of innovative
невозможно
activity
обеспечить в
cannot
одной
be sustained in
точке,
just one
в
point,
одном
in
городе,
one city,
и
and
их могут
they
обеспечить
can
только
be
более крупные
ensured in
пространственные
larger
единицы. Мы в
centers,
своих материалах обычно
and we
называем их там или
normally call
метрополиями, или
them metropolis
мегарегионами.
or mega regions.
Но вот у нас пока
However,
доминирует такой индустриальное понятие
industrial
агломерации,
understanding
хотя,
of
конечно,
the concept of
агломерации
agglomerations.
являются
Of course,
центрами вот
agglomerations
этих
are
вот
the
более крупных
centers of these
территорий образований. Мы
large
сами сейчас вот
territories,
совместно с коллегами
and together with our colleagues, we
с
are
СССР Северо-Запад, МЛА Плюс
currently
и
working
СЦИ
with
работаем над
Association of
концепцией
Northwest.
саратовской
We're working on the
агломерации.
concept of the Saratov agglomeration.
Совместно с нашим ключевым заказчиком это правительство Саратовской
We're
области и
working
Дом
with
РФ.
the
Вот,
Dom
в Самарской
RF and
области
with
тоже
the
есть
government of the
концепция
Saratov region.
Самаро-Тольяттинской
There
агломерации.
is a concept
Но
of Samara
вопрос,
and Tolyatti
каким,
agglomeration
ну,
in the
ключевой
Samara
сейчас
region.
вопрос, да, как
But the
вот эти
key
новые
question is
системы
of how to
инновационной деятельности
implement
войдут
these
в
new
кооперацию друг с
systems
другом
of
в
innovative
более сложном
activities, how to
пространстве.
make them cooperate with one another,
Будут ли те
and whether or
инвестиции,
not
которые
the investments
поддержат
that will
в том числе
support
высокую связанность между
the
этими
high
точками.
degree of
Здесь
communication of
Максим Ткаченко присутствует. Мы
of these points be
буквально
implemented. We have
пару
Maxim
лет
Tkachenko
назад с
here,
ним как раз
and about 2
выступали
years
на
ago
форуме в
we
Екатеринбурге,
together
где
presented
есть
on the
был,
Yekaterinburg
к
forum.
сожалению, прекрасный проект ВСЭ между Екатеринбургом и Челябинском.
There
Вот с
was
нашей точки зрения, это проект
there was a project
будущего,
of
то, что
a
между
communication between
крупными
Yekaterinburg
городами
and
будет
Chelyabinsk
обеспечивать транспортную доступность
with the
сейчас
high-speed
полтора.
transportation link, and I'm sure
И,
that this will
собственно,
be a
эта
success.
инновационная специализация этих
This
метрополий
investment
позволит
specialization of the
сформировать
metropoles
не только
should be highly
такие, знаете,
competitive
как
on an international level,
анклавы
and it
инноватики, которые
should
будут работать
recompile
исключительно
the
на,
traditions
например, на
of the
мировой
sector,
рынок. Это
and
еще
they
должно
will
помочь
be
пересобрать
focused
те
on
традиционные
getting out to
сектора,
international
которые
markets.
есть
We
на этих
will
территориях,
probably
это
need
за
to
счет
recombine the
чего может быть
traditional
тоже обеспечена
industries working in these sectors and
конкурентоспособность экономики
to
наших
drive
регионов.
their competitive
Спасибо большое
capacities
за
as
внимание.
well. I thank you for your kind attention.
Спасибо. Спасибо большое,
Well,
Наталья.
thank
Очень
you,
интересная
Natalia.
презентация.
It was
Но даже
an
небольшие помехи
excellent
по звуку, ну
presentation,
вот они
even though we
совершенно не
had
помешали
some,
понять смысл.
minor
А главное,
hiccups
что
with
это
the
демонстрирует
sound.
то, как действительно, может быть, еще не до конца готовы технологии
maybe
и
this
цифровая
is just a
инфраструктура.
demonstration
Ну вот
of,
так дети в
our
школах
technology
занимаются сейчас
being
в
not
цифровом
completely
варианте. Так
ready
вот мы
for
саммит
all
проводим,
the
и не
challenges
только мы
that the
к этому
digital
нужно
era
быть готовым.
poses
Особенно
for us,
было
but we must be
забавно
ready for
смотреть,
them.
когда вот заседание ФРС, они же сейчас тоже в цифровом варианте, американские Центральный банк, и там кто-то пропадает. Так что, видите, даже у главного Центрального банка мира такое случается, поэтому здесь есть еще над чем работать, но это в будущем. Давайте пойдем дальше. Михаила Баженова хочу подключить к разговору. Это партнер, руководитель практики по работе с компаниями в сфере инфраструктурного и проектного финансирования PwC Russia. Ну, инфраструктурное проектное финансирование или инфраструктурное и проектное финансирование, тема вот еще до ковида, она такая была очень интересная, перспективная, слово модное не хочу здесь употреблять, но действительно перспективная. Но это как в анекдоте, только начал выигрывать, деньги закончились. То есть проектное финансирование инструмент хороший, в инфраструктуру нужно как бы вкладывать. Давайте поговорим о возможностях, насколько они сейчас есть, или вот уже после того, как вся эта история с ковидом закончится, эти возможности останутся. Здесь ковид повлияет как-то на ситуацию? Я предполагаю, что да, но хотелось бы от Михаила это услышать. Может быть, какие-то новые ниши инвестиционные у регионов откроются, что до ковида было не очевидно, а сейчас мы поймем, что это именно так. Михаил, здравствуйте, передаю вам слово.
Да, Алексей, добрый день.
Alexei, good day, and thank you for having me here. I'm also glad to welcome Mr. Azarov and all the participants of the forum. What I would like to do today is to share some of the preliminary conclusions that as to the impact of COVID on the dynamics of investments and forming the investment niches in the regions. The evaluation of the COVID influence are very different in Russia and worldwide. And the international analytical agencies forecasted the drop of the GDP of Russia by 6%, index of industrial production by 6.5%, but this forecast does not include the scenario of scaling up. I think, and I will agree with previous speakers, that the influence of COVID will be a varied one. There will be winners and there will be losers, which will be manifested in a variety of contexts. Every region has faced and still is facing various tasks, i.e. Identifying new bottlenecks in the economy, including affected companies, develop and organize the implementation of federal and regional measures of support to specific companies and to sectors of industry, and to deploy new capacities to control new levels of infection. On the other hand, every region has their specific systems of economy, and it has their own added value streams. This is the reason for the uneven establishment of investment activities across the regions. Some sectors, such as the services sphere, automotive construction, tourism, and non-product retail, well, these are the most affected. Product retail, food industry, agricultural industry, medical services, telecom, and IT. These are some of the sectors which are in the upside. Industry is a giant sector in which we can most clearly see the vectors set by the pandemic. We analyzed the investment activity of key companies in Russia, and by its results, we saw that in the conditions of micro-pandemics, some of the companies contracted their investment programs. Some companies with medium level of capitalization saw the COVID as an extra driver. In these niches, we can see additional money streams formed, and in the future, they may be used for expanding the production. How are the investment niches formed, and how can COVID assist them? There are three factors involved. First of them is the gaps in the local and global added value streams. Second is the increased demand of the sectoral products during the pandemic. And third is the changing in the consumer behavior. The first factor, well, you remember that during the lockdown, there was a very strong problem in
keeping the uninterrupted nature of the supply chains. In some cases, these supply chains are global. That includes aviation, electronics, and so on. When the supply chain is at a threat, when it involves supplying to plants in different locations, well, some countries experience difficulties in manufacturing of chemicals. These products are now at a downfall. Automotive and shipbuilding industries. Due to the problems in the supply chains, some manufacturers of electronic components really suffered. Some companies postponed their regular presentations of gadgets due to the impossibility of satisfying the demand. On the level of companies, we may expect some movement towards localization and diversifying their suppliers in order to secure the manufacturing from any interruptions in the process. And this is also a niche for investments. On the level of governments, there will be a movement towards localizing some products in the country and towards import replacements in order to ensure security and decrease the dependence on supplies from other countries. This tendency identifies some possible growth points in investments. Second factor, increased demand in the crisis periods is for the first necessity goods. Processing industries are at an upside here. And the specifics of the pandemic also influences this to a great degree. We saw a great surge in the sales of disinfection products, sanitizers, and so on. Many companies quickly adapted to that and added new antibacterial properties to their existing products. Detergents, packaging, and so on. This increased the demand on their products, and this enabled an additional revenue. Some companies in the chemical industry, which manufactured industrial chemical products, quickly reacted to this demand and quickly reoriented their capacities to manufacture protective and disinfecting products and their options. Then there are non-standard things, non-standard phenomena. We saw quite an interesting effect on the market of cosmetics. This was the so-called lipstick effect. During the recession, when the revenues, when the customer income drops, the sales of decorative cosmetics are growing. People tend to buy more cheaper products. The next factor is the change in the consumer behavior. Sometimes it gives non-standards and completely unexpected results. I'm not speaking about some sporadic surges in the purchases of individual protection means, but I'm speaking about rather long-term effects. For example, we can see an effect on the retail automotive market. Even before the crisis, it had started falling, and in the year 2019, it dropped by 2.5%. During the pandemic, it dropped by 15% in the first half year. But the recent research by PwC and a survey of consumers in Europe, it revealed that people prefer individual mobility, including private cars and car sharing. Before the pandemic, there were 44% of passenger transportation by public transport. After the pandemic, as we are forecasting, we might see a decrease in the public transport share by 22%, and the growth of passenger car involvement by 64%, which might change the transportation models of cities. Before now, we saw the major development of transportation infrastructure in the big cities in the area of increasing public transportation sphere. Now we can see the major question in stimulating the investments inflow. The existing large enterprises could provide for the investments before now, and now we have to look for some unconventional growth points. The competition for a potential investor is growing, so there is a question of how to make this work most efficient, to look for investors and to attract them. Starting in October last year, we were doing some work with the government of the Samara region in terms of looking for the possible growth points to make the work with potential investors more efficient and more effective. In the conditions of an increased competition between regions, we need to understand in a better way the demands of each investor, and we have to have a rider of requirements. The majority of companies understand the availability of special regimes, administrative support, and one-stop shop as a standard package. What becomes more important is the unique capacities of the region and the possibility of integrating the project in the existing economic chains. The higher availability of export markets, the possibility of reducing the transportation leg, and the availability of transportation hubs, as well as a comfortable urban environment for the living of the employees, are also some of the perks. Even though we did this research during the peak of the pandemics and many companies were not able to provide a clear answer as to their investment plans at once, there were some companies which were seeing their growth points in the pandemics and which had some plans as to the growth of their production. In conclusion, I'd like to say that in this new reality, especially when it becomes difficult to look for the investment niches, we will need to further develop the digital solutions. For example, some tools which will enable gathering of big data about companies, about markets, about tracking contacts and changes in the key indicators, not only in aggregated market indicators, but in the changes of normative acts and lawmaking initiatives, such as in import replacement, the news background in the industry, the new risks for the region. There should be a system of indicators and algorithms which will be able to identify new investment niches and the companies that are most ready for investments. Okay, may I welcome all of you again, and may success attend you, good health and good development to your businesses.
Спасибо, Михаил. Да.
Thank you, Mikhail.
Вам тоже здоровья. Ну, подтвержу то, что ваше исследование показало, даже статистика последняя по автопродажам говорит, что здесь наметился рост. Он пока еще такой дискретный, но в Китае, например, рост. Да, и извините, опять слово девиации, отклонение от нормы по причине ковида, они тоже необычные. И больше машин стали покупать, наоборот, к экологичным машинам меньше спроса, например, в Европе. Это тоже парадоксальная история. То есть к таким изменениям, неожиданностям нужно быть готовыми. Но ценная мысль, конечно, о том, что сейчас за инвестора нужно бороться. Более того, я бы здесь сказал, что тут важно не потерять того, кто есть уже. Вот, по совершенно объективным причинам, просто закончатся деньги у инвестора, производство может встать. И здесь, опять же, вот это пакетированное предложение от регионов действительно требует какого-то особого подхода, разнообразия. Я предлагаю сейчас поговорить, как бороться за инвестора. И вот у нас один из наших участников онлайн, Денис Журавский, он исполнительный директор Ассоциации индустриальных парков. Ему сейчас слово хотел передать. То есть вот индустриальные парки, ассоциацию, которую возглавляет Денис, их сейчас достаточно много уже. Их, как говорится, понастроили, извините за это слово, понастроили. Но действительно, вот их много. Как они себя чувствуют? Как бороться сейчас за инвесторов? Потому что, я еще раз повторюсь, сейчас бы вот не упустить того, кто уже есть. Можно ли привлекать в столь тяжелое время новых инвесторов? Какие здесь могут быть решения, если мы говорим у нас о России?
When we speak about Russia, so what are some of the things we can do?
Денис, да. Секундочку, тоже звук. Сейчас мы вам включим, или вы нажмете на клавишу
Dennis, we are waiting for your sound to come up.
И мы вас услышим.
Да, так слышно?
Отлично.
Oh, yes.
Да. Прошу вас, Денис.
Спасибо. Спасибо. Да, хотел бы еще раз поприветствовать всех участников.
May I also welcome all of the participants of the summit on behalf of the Association of Industrial Parks of Russia. Industrial parks are playing a very important role in attracting investors. And I would say that we are starting to play the definitive role in it. I'm trying to... yes, I see my presentation is already on screen.
Да, Денис, мы вывели презентацию на экран.
Yes, Denis, your presentation,
Наверное, поможем
is on
покрутить ее,
screen.
да?
And
Поможем.
Ну, давайте так, да, потому что у меня сейчас нет управления, тогда...
Да, вы говорите следующий слайд и так далее, мы будем вам переключать.
Yes. We will switch the slides.
Итак, можно следующий слайд?
Да, следующий слайд давайте.
Да, спасибо. Ну, собственно, то, о чем я сказал сейчас.
This is exactly the thing that I've been referring to just now. Industrial parks are the points of growth, which is confirmed by numerous researchers. Since 2013, we've been analyzing in detail the dynamics of investment that come to the regions through industrial parks and special economic zones. Here you can see quite a positive picture of growth. We believe that we will have pretty much the same picture in the year 2020. And, well, we already have quite a number of industrial parks, and there will be more. In the past 5 years, the total area of the industrial parks increased twofold. And this is completely justified. In this slide, you can see the number of residents and the number of jobs created. If we created 150,000 new jobs in new companies, this is a very positive figure. The number of these companies already exceeds 3,000. The total number of industrial parks today is 269. And the most frequent question that I am being asked is what will be the ultimate figure? When is this growth going to end? Well, we cannot look beyond the horizon of 5 years, but I would say that the growth will continue, definitely, and it will not stop even when we have 300 industrial parks. For the industrial parks in Russia, there is a dilemma. We need to decide whether it is too many or too few. Here you can see an answer to this question. Maybe you think that this is a difficult picture to understand, but I will give a comment on it. In the 5 years, we have doubled the area of industrial parks due to the construction of new sites and due to the development of the existing sites. Here we have analyzed only the existing industrial parks, i.e. those parks where the investors can enter and start with the installation of their equipment if it concerns the brownfield objects. So when the areas have doubled, we had 61% of occupation of the territories of industrial parks. Before that, we were balancing on the level of 50% of the filling rate of industrial parks. And our colleagues from the governments were criticizing us for these figures. But now the figures speak for themselves, and we can safely say that the filling rate of the industrial parks is growing steadily. That means that the demand for them is growing steadily, and that the demand surpasses the offer. We are building new capacities, but the demand for them is growing faster. if we hadn't been constructing any of the industrial parks in the past 5 years, we now would have been at a situation when the existing areas would not have been enough, and that would be not a good thing. Professional fields, well, we have them now, but this is the result of our work. This is based on completely objective figures, on facts, and the facts lie in the understanding that we have a very good development of industrial parks and this infrastructure in the regions, and we provide everything necessary to our investors. Here you can see the trillion 250 billion rubles, which is the total value generated by the industrial parks of the country in the 10 years of their operation. The most interesting figure, however, is that these investments are highly concentrated.
So the 16 regions that you can see at the right, in the right section of the slide, and by the way, Samar region has quite a significant place in this, or among these regions. So 90% of all the investment in the industrial parks were allocated between 16 regions, mostly Volga region and a central federal district. So this is a bit of a paradox. But in fact, it does reflect the geography of industrial parks. The situation that took place, that was about 5 years ago, we only counted implemented or realized investments. We do not take into account launched investments or initial investments. So when we made a decision, investment decisions about these projects, the geography of industrial parks actually corresponded to the right column, the right list, the list on the right. So if we look at, speaking of Samara region, first and foremost today, we should say that the region is, in fact, one of the leading ones. We have 4 industrial parks, active industrial parks of all types. So investors can choose. These are there's a special economic zone, which is one of the largest and oldest in the country, and one of the most developed ones in Tolyatti. There are private industrial parks and sites with the public participation, both greenfield and brownfield ones. And so it testifies to the fact that any demand of any future investor can be satisfied by all these different types of sites of industrial parks. So the topic of today's discussion is, what do we expect in the near future? What's the impact of the pandemic? Is there any room for optimism? So next slide, please. In fact, we will I will be echoing what Mikhail just mentioned. We have we're an in-house analysis which echoes this picture and his view. 2020 is the time of challenge on the one hand, and there's definitely been an impact on several industries. Yet, on the other hand, it poses opportunities. So what happened to industrial parks? None of the industrial parks actually stopped or halted. When we introduced quarantine, we had industries with which we interacted in a non-stop fashion. So each and every type of manufacture or production related to it, with the very exception of the very few. And so with the help of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, many thanks to my colleagues, we drafted all the necessary regulations so that industrial parks could continue despite the quarantine. So in general, obviously we had an impact on the management company. All the industrial parks continued. Some of the construction sites halted or stopped, but this was a very short stop of 2 or 3 weeks, and we resumed. We actually continued with most of these construction projects. And so obviously there was some negative impacts on the brownfields. So these are the industrial parks that the model of which was rent-based or lease-based. Obviously, their lease payments suffered, and they had some difficulties, but all of them sustained, all of them managed to survive, and we'll look into the future and look into ways to attract new residents. On this slide, you can see as to what happened with the investors in industrial parks, and the most two important factors. I call it import substitution 2.0, and of course supply chain changes in the supply chain. Obviously, all the companies suffered the same change, and it's a commonplace thing everywhere in the world. Global supplies obviously were under risk, and major companies had to stop. We had a communications bridge with Japan recently, and we had feedback from major companies in Japan. Their conveyors had to stop. Toyota, Mitsubishi conveyors had to actually stop for some time in major countries, including Japan. So this was the case in Russia as well. There were some difficulties. The same reason, obviously. Lack of supplies or delays in car part supplies, which is crucial for manufacturers, OEMs, that had to stop or that deploy their localization now. So this is obviously the key trend in the region. Import substitution is the one. It's not based on the public policy, as was the case before. The association is some protectionism that's what's associated with import substitution, but now it's in fact underpinned by the desire of companies or the intention of companies to get localized. And Peter Mikhail actually mentioned it. It's the attempt to reduce dependency on global suppliers and global OEMs. So what we can expect, speaking of opportunities for the regions from the standpoint of investor promotion, investor attraction, and we feel that trend from our industrial parks, from potential investors. It is.
На самом интересном месте у нас звук пропал.
Unfortunately,
Да, Денис,
we
слышите
don't have the
меня?
sound, and suppliers they want to see localized production of their components, of their car parts, and they want to invest in such localized production sites. Also, according to our data, agribusiness, agricultural product processing enjoys growth. There are other industries that have exponential growth. These industries have been there all the time in the past, and they persist today. They exist today. These are new segments, tech segments that enjoy fast growth, like accumulators, like batteries for cars, for buses, and trolley buses, batteries. It's just one of the examples. We have many such tech segments, which is a chance, despite the pandemic, and obviously weakened. But just to give you some substantiation of my optimism, I'd like to show you this slide. So yesterday I put together some of the most recent data. I begin to feel that 2020, when it comes to investment, I mentioned in Commerson that 2020 would not be would be no worse than 2019. Then I decided it was some time ago, so I decided to double check and to compare the numbers. So I asked my colleagues to take the top 5 largest projects in the industrial parks and special economic zones that we launched this past summer. So these are the projects that have actually been launched. So the first 2, Nestle and PepsiCo, we were there at the foundation stone stage. This is the investment that has been launched. These are the 5 top projects that their total investment is more than all of the investment.
Ну, все инвестиции, да.
Right, all of the investment.
Да, вот, связь. Денис.
So
Денис,
here's the communication that we have. Dennis, can you hear me? We cannot hear you.
Да. Ну, к сожалению, да, не слышно.
Unfortunately, we
Мы
cannot
видим этот
hear.
последний слайд с инвестициями.
We can see
Денис,
this last
слышите ли
slide
меня?
from Dennis. Can
Еще
you
раз.
hear us?
Да.
Yeah,
Денис.
it speaks for itself. It
Просто
means that
прерывается звук немножко, да?
we
Я
have an
чуть-чуть вас
interruption
тогда
here.
потороплю, потому что боюсь, что
So
он третий раз прервется. Так мы уже
I'd
временами
like
слышим,
to,
временами не слышим. Ага.
I urge you to be a little bit,
Да.
yeah, to speak a bit in an accelerated fashion. So this is the example that we should actually have some optimism for the future. We do have opportunities when it comes to investment promotion. And the next slide, growth point for the regions. As I mentioned, new investors that come to industrial parks is the left part of this chart. We call it unorganized opposition, jokingly. So these are the investors that waive these sites in favor of industrial parks. So the regions where industrial parks are actually developed and the special economic zones are developed, and where they are in good shape, in good position, they become the most attractive ones for investors. More and more often, we are being asked, they don't ask us, do you have in an X region, do you have any good sites or good special economic zones? It's not what they ask. They ask us, in which regions do you have good industrial parks where we can actually go with no fear? So this is what can be illustrated by the numbers. Next slide, please. We have analyzed, and we can see that requests from investors to choose the site that we receive as an association. Investors obviously approach companies directly, so the routes can be different, but sometimes it happens via our association. So among 83 requests that we had this year, 11 of them came to industrial parks. 8 of them are still in the process of choosing unorganized sites. So this is actually a chance for the regions, to grow based on a segment. Next slide, please. And I'm actually about to finish. So once again, so I'd like to urge the management of the region to support industrial parks. And I'd like to assure you that we, as the professional association, are ready to help and to assist in this work. When we started back in 2010 as an organization that was engaged in the public support, state support, in 2020 we have been reformatted into an organization that helps attract investment, helps promote investment, and we assist in industrial parks. We are a service for international investors, and let me agree with the previous speakers. These are the baseline things, including tax benefits, tax breaks, administrative support. They're not a determinant factor when it comes to choosing a region or a place for investment. These are actually baseline, obvious things that are present just about everywhere else. The determinant factors are the level of preparedness, the readiness of the structure of a site. So I'd like to think that we should focus on this, because the potential of the processing industries is there. Many thanks. I'd be more than happy to address your questions. Thank you, Dennis. Unfortunately, we do not have the time. It's a very interesting topic, but we need to speed up a bit. And I'd like to move the discussion to our panel speakers, our speakers here in the audience. I'd like to give the floor to Maxim Tkachenko. He also has a presentation. He's the executive director of the nonprofit organization National Center for the Development of Public-Private Partnership. It's quite a popular but a bit threatening abbreviation, but I should say that it's a good time to reformat PPP, public-private partnership, because we do have certain amendments in the legislation when it comes to PPP to reinforce that. So the change is to extend loans and extend funding in the national currency, because oftentimes the case was funding in US dollars. And the exchange rate issues are quite topical. So PPP is something that people understand differently, like social objects, like kindergartens, for example. But to me, PPP objects must be cash flow objects. or
все, что знал,
constant
говорит,
cash
я
flow
сказал.
objects.
Теперь
So
слово
this
вам.
is just about it
Можно ли
from my
сделать
side.
это,
Как
да?
раз наоборот хочу сказать, что сейчас
On the
время,
other hand, I'd like
когда
to say
социальная инфраструктура вполне себе объект для
that
ГЧП,
social
и генерическое
infrastructure is
кэшфлоу
actually a
может
good
не всегда
one
это
for
кэшфлоу
PPPs.
за счет
Not
потребителя
necessarily
обеспечивается, иногда за счет
cash flow should come
государства
from
или там
consumers.
смешанным
Oftentimes it
образом.
should come from
Ну, я бы хотел
the
начать,
state
коллеги,
or
с
in a
того,
mixed way.
что
I'd like to start by
Дмитрий
saying
Игоревич в
that,
своем выступлении в конце
as
сказал, что
Andrei
Самара
mentioned at
3
the end
года
of his
подряд является
presentation,
региональным
Samara
лидером по теме
has been a
ГЧП,
leading region for the
и
past 3
не
years
дадут
as
мне
a
соврать
PPP,
коллеги,
in terms
которые
of
этой темой
PPP.
активно занимаются, что это привело
My
к тому, что
colleagues
Самара
will
стала
agree
таким
that Samara has
ГЧП-меккой.
become
То есть
this
редкий месяц проходит без
PPP
того, чтобы
mecca.
какая-нибудь делегация из какого-нибудь региона не
We've had
приехала,
delegations just
чтобы
about
поучиться
every
у коллег.
month
И я бы в этой связи хотел
to
сказать
get
отдельное
experience, best
спасибо
practices from
Дмитрию
colleagues. So I'd
Игоревичу
like to
и
thank
команде Министерства экономики за то, что
Dmitry
вместе с
Igorovich,
нами
Mr.
такую
Governor, and the
просветительскую важную
administration,
функцию тоже
because they've been
выполняют и
playing a
продвигают
very
эту
important
тему.
role in
Дмитрий Игоревич тоже
promoting
на всех
this
площадках
topic and we've been
защищает этот
promoting
инструмент, его
this instrument
всячески популяризирует.
and have been popularized.
Сказать, то
To put it simply,
ГЧП — это тогда, когда инвестор вкладывается в объект
PPP is
общественной
where an
инфраструктуры и
investor
зарабатывает за
invests
счет
in public
ее
infrastructure object,
использования. Да?
and they make
Либо
money by using it, by
использование
the
в
use of
интересах
that
государства, когда платежи
object.
идут в государство,
Or
либо в
if,
интересах
obviously,
пользователей, тогда пользователь платит за то,
So
что он
when
эту
consumers
инфраструктуру
pay,
использует.
they get the
И,
proceeds.
конечно, если
Otherwise,
можно
the state
вывести
receives
презентацию,
the
коллеги,
proceeds. So if you can show us the slide.
была запланирована небольшая
As
презентация.
planned,
А
I
работает
planned
кликер?
I have a
Да, его
very
надо только
short presentation for you.
Включить нужно, да, извините.
Ага. Попробуем.
Это все равно не работает. А, вот.
Пошло.
Если говорить о там, емкости рынка, вот
Speaking
коллеги
of
про
market
индустриальные
capacity,
парки
market
сказали,
size,
я, честно говоря, удивлен,
we
что
talked about
например, рынок
industrial parks. I
ГЧП
was
в
surprised
абсолютных
that
цифрах законтрактованных
PPP
инвестиций в 5 раз больше. То есть это уже
is
там,
5
ближе к
times as
5
much.
миллиардам,
It's we're
5
getting closer to
триллионам
5
цифра
trillion
приближается по общему
rubles
объему законтрактованных
total
инвестиций.
contracted
И
investments.
количество
And the
реализуемых
number
проектов
of
сегодня
realized
4,5
projects is
тысячи. То есть это, можно
4,5
сказать, примерно
So that's
7-8
around
тысяч объектов в
7 to
стране,
8,000 objects in the
от
country.
мелкой коммуналки до
Anywhere
магистралей,
from
типа
utilities, small utilities
северо-западного
to
обхода, да, там,
pipelines
дорог
to
Хабаровска,
roads,
Перми, там,
like regional roads.
проекта языка, части проекта языка в Самаре. Все это как
So
бы
some of the projects are in Samara. So this is something that has been implemented using PPP.
Неизменно уже много лет
So
примерно один и тот же. Лидер по
when it comes
объему
to the
инвестиций транспорт,
investment,
лидер по
when it comes
количеству
to the
проектов
industry
коммуналка.
breakdown, we have transport,
Между
we
ними
got
находится
utilities,
социальная сфера,
we have
которая
social
очень быстрыми темпами
infrastructure
растет.
that has
То
been
есть
enjoying
парки,
growth,
общественные пространства,
parks, public spaces,
образование,
shared
даже
space,
соцбытовое обслуживание.
education
Сегодня это то,
projects,
что
social
становится объектом
services.
для ГЧП.
This is
Почему
something
мы как
that's
раз
becoming
поговорим, и
subject of
тему
PPP.
ковида это тоже будет.
We'll also
Отдельно
touch upon
хочу
the
отметить, что
COVID-19
появляются
as
такие
part of
отрасли, как
it.
сельское
So
хозяйство
we
и
have
IT.
agriculture and
Причем
IT
первая
as the
концессия
new.
по объекту IT муниципального уровня
When it
была
comes to
заключена в
IT, we
Красногорске.
launched
Это
a municipal
геоинформационная
level
система.
PPP in
Законодатель дал
Krasnoyarsk.
нам право использовать
So
эти инструменты
legislation
для
allows
IT-сферы, и
us
это
to
прям
use this tool,
имеет свои,
and
там,
we have,
мне кажется, очень
I
долгосрочные
believe it has
позитивные
a
эффекты.
long-term positive effect.
Пропущу географию, я думаю, не так интересно, чтобы ускориться. Я на самом деле хотел вот этим слайдом немножко нагнать жути на участников,
which are not
в
extremely
части того,
interesting
как
for you,
ковид
but with
действует на
this
рынок. Но
one,
если
I would like to
объективным быть,
focus your
то
attention on it.
все не так страшно, потому что инфраструктура —
What
это
happens
довольно
in the markets is
инерционная
not
сфера,
very,
она
is not very
долго
bad today.
реагирует на
The
всплески,
infrastructure
которые происходят,
is
разовые, они в моменте не влияют. То
reacting
есть мы
to the
оценивали, что возможно,
to the current
невозможно, а
context,
так и есть,
not
что
fast.
прогнозные потери
It
бизнеса
is
в этой
very
отрасли
inertial.
составят там, порядка 50
We
миллиардов рублей на
might
этапе
see
эксплуатации объекта,
the
который
losses
находится
of
в этапе
businesses
эксплуатации,
in
где-то
the public-private
70-80
partnership
на
projects
этапе строительства,
in
удорожания. Но это
some
цифры,
47 billion
понятно,
rubles,
в масштабах всей
but
экономики страны вообще
these are the
копейки, а в
numbers
масштабах
in
нашего
the
рынка ГЧП,
scale
при
of
условии,
the
что эти
total economy of
затраты
the
будут
country.
растянуты участниками во
Considering that
времени, то есть,
these
как
losses
правило,
will
все,
be
что
stretched
новое
over time,
возникает
and
у
considering
инвестора,
that,
там, закрыл ты объект на 3 месяца, несешь потери. То есть проект ГЧП за счет своей гибкости
considering that the
позволяет
investor's
сторонам
losses
договориться,
will
что
not be
да, ты потерял
momentary.
здесь
Well,
там квартал-два
with,
своей работы, но мы тебе срок действия соглашения
with
увеличим на
public-private
полгода, там, на
partnerships,
год,
we
ты за счет
can extend
последующих
the
этапов
terms
себе эти
of
затраты вернешь. Поэтому,
investors'
если быть
agreements
честным,
and so on.
то вот в
So,
деньгах рынок
honestly,
нельзя сказать, что
in terms
сильно
of money,
пострадал. Более
the
того,
market has not
он
suffered a
стагнировать
lot.
начал задолго до пандемии.
Moreover,
Просто сейчас, может быть, чуть-чуть темп этой стагнации усилился.
The
Вот
tempo
что
of this
действительно
stagnation
изменилось,
has increased,
это
but we were ready
отразится
for
на
it even before the pandemic.
региональных
Of
проектах.
course, there will be some
Это
impact onto the regional
то, что
projects.
называется пользовательским поведением, это
Of course,
непредсказуемость трафика.
consumer
Да, мы
behavior will change.
в
The traffic
абсолютных
will
цифрах,
be
там 3 месяца или
unpredictable,
полгода простоя для
and
объектов
in
инфраструктуры,
absolute
социальной
values,
в диапазоне
we
проектов 30 лет
might
это не страшно. Но
be having
мы
some
не знаем,
losses.
будет ли
But
повторение этих ситуаций.
with the
Становится является
length
абсолютно
of the
там
project, say
непрогнозируемым.
30 years, this is not a
История
bad
с
thing.
трафиком,
We do not know whether or
непрогнозируемая
not this story will repeat.
ситуация с падением платежеспособного спроса,
We do
и
not
действительно
know
меняется
how the
потребительское поведение.
drop in the
Федеральные органы
consumer
власти
behavior
эту
in the
проблему на своем уровне
consumer
решат,
spending
как правило,
will
тем, что
impact us.
там увеличивают бюджетное финансирование такой
There might
инфраструктуры,
be
либо
increase
отказываются
in
от
budgetary
такого
financing
типа.
of this
Но городам,
infrastructure,
регионам здесь деваться
but
некуда, все равно
in
придется
cities, in the
коммуналку,
regions,
социалку содержать и
the
обслуживать и
residential and
развивать.
social
Мы от этого
infrastructure
никуда не
will
уйдем.
need to be
Что-то уйдет в
developed
цифру,
and need
как
to
сказал
be
Анталия,
kept
абсолютно
on
согласен.
financing.
Но многие вещи останутся. Это
Many things
в этих
will
отраслях, в
remain.
этих объектах
So in
возникнет
these
запрос на разделение
sectors,
риска
in these
коммерческого с государством
regions, the risks
и
will be
рост доли
decreased.
государства в таких рода проектов. И это, кстати, время и возможность для
This
рынка
is
ГЧП.
the
Потому что,
time of opportunities for the
например, если мы
PPP
понимаем,
market.
что проект
We understand
высок
that
риск,
if
что трафик будет
the
скакать,
project
то
has a
инвестор
high risk
нормальным
of
образом придет и скажет, там, уважаемый
a high
регион,
risk
дорогой
of
город,
traffic
Самара, да,
fluctuations,
а давай-ка ты
we can
риск трафика
understand
возьмешь на
that
себя. Давай вот
an
ты часть
investor may
загрузки
ask
возьмешь на то, чтобы по
let's say, the
спортивному
city of
объекту, по
Samara
объекту образования, то, что
to
я раньше мог
undertake and
спрогнозировать
to
сам, в
compensate
нынешних
for these
условиях,
risks.
давай ты мне там 30% гарантируешь этой
Let's
загрузки из
say
бюджета.
30%
И
of your
это, на
facility
самом
loading
деле,
will be guaranteed
единственная
from the
форма,
regional
которая
budget.
позволяет сделать сегодня в России, это
This is the
ГЧП,
only
концессии, потом соглашение
part,
ГЧП.
this is
И
the
это
only
новое время для этой формы. И
type of
главное
projects,
этим
I
временем
mean,
правильно
public-private
воспользоваться и поменять немножко логику
private
работы с
partnership
инвестором.
projects
Как
which
поменять?
enable
Два
such an
ключевых
approach.
тезиса хотел на следующем слайде.
How do we
У меня
implement
опять
such things?
не работает. Можно следующий слайд?
Да, помогите нам переключить, пожалуйста. Вот.
Okay.
Очень два простых тезиса, два квадратика. Да? Первое, региональные проектные офисы, региональные управленческие команды должны отнестись к инфраструктуре как к активу, а не как к пассиву, как к тому, что может, чем нужно управлять как активом. То есть приложить определенные инструменты акселерации, сказать, вот, как обычно инвестор управляет портфелем. Да? Выделяем, что в портфеле даст максимальный мультипликативный эффект, во что можно вложиться вместе с каким-то партнером, и дальше это реализуем. Также нужно делать и с инфраструктурой. Что не бэнкабл, не коммерчески неинтересно, во что невозможно привлечь партнера, делаем за бюджет. Все, во что можно привлечь партнера, значит, делаем, инвестируем время и ресурсы, чтобы подготовить это как актив в рынку и предлагаем. Дальше наступает вторая стадия. Научиться предлагать рынку актив. То есть, если раньше можно было сказать, дорогой инвестор, вот у нас есть земля под объект спортивной инфраструктуры, положите, пожалуйста, сам придумай, что ты хочешь, бассейн. То сегодня эта логика уже не работает. Вы должны сказать, дорогой инвестор, нам нужен бассейн в таких-то параметрах. Мы знаем, что будет востребован. Почему? Вот маркетинг. Что мы готовы загрузить за счет школ, рядом находящихся, например, с этим объектом. Вот тебе показатель. То есть мы должны в каком-то смысле додумать за инвестора бизнес-модель. Пускай не в базу, мы не должны занимать текст юридических документов, а всю финмодель. Но базовые параметры мы должны для него сформулировать. И дальше, даже если речь идет о частной инициативе, мы должны этой инициативе создать оферту, да? Мы должны сделать это предложение. Вот это очень два важных тезиса, которые принципиально меняют, на наш взгляд, всю логику работы с такого рода инвесторами. И регион, который быстрее в это перестроится, в эту логику, быстрее сможет нарастить эти емкости, эти объемы инвестиций. Что мы за счет партнерства с Web в этой части региона предлагаем? Мы взяли на себя такую некую мессианскую функцию, и бесплатно готовы помогать методологически с этим портфелем работать, проводить экспертизу документации, готовить инвестиционные меморандумы, все это делать безвозмездно в целях того, чтобы сейчас момент сложный для рынка, не дать ему настагнировать. И учитывая, что у нас большая страна, мы по весу сегодняшней темы, про цифровизацию говорили, мы поняли, что не налетаешься, регионов много, работать со всеми, и мы запустили в прошлом году платформу, которую сейчас развиваем. Хотел попросить небольшой ролик, там, на 3,5 минуты включить. И завершить. Если можно ролик, да, включить.
It's just 3 minutes, and I think it will be okay if I end my presentation with it.
Скажите, что нет, тогда мы просто завершим.
Но на все нужно время.
Современные реалии формируют перед региональными и местными властями все новые и новые вызовы.
The modern reality forms new challenges related to the development of public infrastructure, construction, repair, modernization, digitalization. Considering all the restrictions and the budgets, we have an entire marathon in reaching the KPIs. Sometimes we need to stop and think about the efficiency of what we did so far. Russia is a huge country, and development of infrastructure in Russia is an endless process. construction of new roads, new bridges, public transport and development of public places, construction of schools, hospitals, modernizing the residential housing systems. All these tasks require financial investment, and they require a modern, holistic approach. This is why we developed the Rosinfra digital platform aimed at tackling the tasks of regions and municipalities. We brought business and state on one side, in which their partnership will be instrumental in creating new infrastructural objects to improve quality of life of people. Representatives of authority will decrease their costs in looking for investors and working on the project, and the business will be able to invest in the pre-engineered infrastructural products. Sometimes the public partnership projects occur not only because a government agency does not have expertise for the project. We digitized all of the implemented investment projects from 2005, and we have the largest database which enables you to learn in real time with the projects and their participants. We have a unique, smart analytical knowledge base with all the materials which reflect trends of development of infrastructure in Russia and abroad. We've created a unique ecosystem of professionals of public-private partnership who will be able to join the investors and government agencies to provide online competences in infrastructural projects. They all create a powerful assisting tool for the public-private partnership market and a more prudent work with infrastructural assets. However, we went an extra mile and we designed a project office. This is a service which employs all the services of the platform to start a project from scratch. Upload your project, upload your idea. The program will analyze it and suggest you the most feasible ways with generic solutions. It will provide you with educational components which will be necessary for your projects. The experts of the platform will give you an express assessment of your product and will assess the quality of pre-engineering. You will receive the quality analysis and the roadmap to work on your projects. The expert will assist you in working with the documents, and very soon we will delegate this function to an automated system. The system will offer the companies which will find companies which will be engaged on various stages of implementing the projects. We will be able to find for investors with whom to partner in order to launch the project successfully. The platform is currently used by more than 3,000 government officials from all over the country. They use it in their implemented projects, in the pre-engineering. They join online accredited experts, and they publish the pre-engineered projects in order to find the investors. Russian and international investors, construction companies, and consulting agencies are all joining Rosinfra. Rosinfra is an efficient partnership of the public authorities and the business.
Еще раз обращу внимание, что платформа для госорганов бесплатная.
For public structures, this platform is completely free for use.
Телеграм-канал Росинфра тоже самым
And
последним
our Rosinfra Telegram channel is also open for you. We will be glad to work with all regions and with Samara in the first place. So you are very, very welcome.
Спасибо большое, Максим, спасибо, да. Ну, журналистам тоже бесплатно или только?
Мы даем, кстати, коллегам доступы к аналитике бесплатно.
Yes, we provide some access to analytics to the journalists.
Ну, это интересный, да, сейчас подход, и какие-то такие рэперные точки вы точно очень не расставили. Возвращаясь все-таки к региональному развитию, к региональным инновациям, Дениса Аграфенина хотел бы подключить, исполняющий обязанности главного инженера Куйбышевской железной дороги, это филиал ОРЖД. Я бы так, наверное, спросил. Вообще влияние сейчас региональной инновационной площадки на экономику региона. Но есть оно четко выражено. Можно ли говорить, что региональные инновационные площадки влияют на экономику региона?
Да, Алексей, спасибо за вопрос. Но уверен, на 100%, что влияние, конечно же, есть, и оно,
Yes, I'm
несомненно, положительное.
100% sure that this
Когда создавали
influence
мы
is here.
инновационную площадку в
When we
регионе,
were
в первую
creating
очередь
this
ставили задачи по ускорению
innovative
процесса
what
внедрения
we
новых
wanted to do is
технологий
to speed up
непосредственно в
the
ВАУ
processes
РЖД,
of
и которые,
technological
в свою очередь,
implementations
должны
in the Russian
влиять
railways,
на улучшение основных показателей
which
производственной
would
деятельности компании.
impact the major KPIs of the
Мы,
company.
направляя открытые запросы
By
во внешнюю
sending
инновационную
open
среду,
requests
привлекаем
to the
и научный
to the
потенциал, и
external
промышленный
environment,
потенциал
we
области,
were
и,
trying to
соответственно,
bring together the
решая
industrial and
поставленные
scientific
задачи
potential of the region and
в
to make them
части
work
привлечения
for the
новых
solution of
разработок
our tasks,
и внедрения
to
их в
attract
ВАУ
new
РЖД,
developments
соответственно, мы
and to
создаем
implement them
новые,
in the
так
Russian
скажем,
railways.
рынки по
This is how we created new markets for
распространению вот этих
the
вот новых разработок
dissemination of
и
new
внутри компании ВАУ
practices,
РЖД, как в Самарской области
both
непосредственно, да, как
inside
мы
the Samara region
собрали здесь, то ли мы на территории Самарской области работаем. Соответственно, внедряя в
and
Самарской области, есть возможность внедрять и
when
на
we
всей сети
implement
ВАУ
something in the
РЖД.
Samara region, we will be
Соответственно,
able to
когда
replicate the
компании
experience throughout the
приходят с новыми
entire scale
разработками,
of Russian
соответственно,
railways.
они перестраивают и свое
When companies
производство,
come to
соответственно,
us with their
создаются
developments,
новые рабочие
they will be
места,
able to
соответственно,
redefine their
это
production
новые
facilities,
и
create new
увеличенные
jobs,
налоговые отчисления, в том числе из
generate
бюджета тех
more
регионов, где
tax revenue,
организовано
which is
производство
extremely
этих
important
инноваций.
for
И поэтому,
the regions which are
соответственно,
involved in the
отсюда
manufacturing
вот он и
cycle
происходит,
of
вот этот
these
положительный
technological
эффект.
developments.
Ну и
These are all
результатом
components to
взаимодействия уже есть
success.
конкретные примеры.
The
Например,
result of this
компания
interaction
Аком создала новый
is the
прототип
company
необслуживаемой
Acom,
аккумуляторной
which
батареи,
created
который
new
мы
serviceable
планируем внедрять
batteries,
у
which
себя
we
на
will
дороге,
be
соответственно, это и
implementing in
Самарской
our
области, и
railways,
другие регионы
in
присутствуют
Samara
Балтийской
region
железной
and
дороги.
in other regions.
И потребность на сегодняшний день составляет
The
порядка 100
demand is quite
единиц
high.
подвижного состава. Это и компания системы технологий,
We have
которая адаптировала
another
свое
company,
производство под
Systems and
выпуск
Technologies,
прокладок,
which
инновационных
adapted
прокладок,
its
изолирующих
production
для электрических рельсовых цепей.
new
Соответственно, это совершенно новое для
pads
них
for the
производство.
installation of
Ну и многие
electrical
другие примеры.
railway chains and many
Поэтому
other
результатом
examples.
взаимодействия, естественно,
So the result of this
мы видим
cooperation,
синергетический
we
эффект
can
не
see
только
an
для
effect
ОАО
of
РЖД, но и,
synergy not
соответственно,
only
для
for
промышленности
Russian railways, but for
нашей
the
компании в
regional
Самарской области и
industry on the
других
whole.
регионах. Ну вот коротко, наверное,
So
так.
this is it
Спасибо,
in a
спасибо и за
nutshell.
краткость особенно. Наверное, какие-то
Thank
еще
you for
обучающие
keeping it
должны
short.
быть здесь истории, тем более,
Yeah,
что
we
ну, действительно
definitely
сейчас,
see we
когда мы
need
говорим о
such
технологиях,
success stories,
нужно повышать
especially when we speak about
навыки людей,
technologies.
которые к
We
этим
need to
технологиям
improve the
как бы
skills of
прикасаются.
the people
И
who
Максим об
touch
этом
these
тоже
technologies.
в ролике как
This
бы
was
сказал, упомянули
this was
здесь,
briefly
и что
referred to by
помимо
Maxim in his
доступа к
video,
самим проектам, их базе,
this
есть
was
еще и
pronounced by some other
возможность
speakers.
образовательных каких-то
We see the
моментов
possibilities for
получать.
some
В этой
educational
связи
input.
ректор
And it is
автономной
here that I would
некоммерческой
like to give the
организации
floor
Университет
to University
2035
2035,
Нина
Nina
Яникина,
Yanikina,
мне кажется,
the
может больше
rector.
рассказать. Я, честно говоря, себе ответить на этот вопрос с
I hope
уверенностью
that
100% не мог. А нужно ли вот сейчас
the question of
какие-то дополнительные
do we
обучающие
need
истории для
new
людей, которые уже
educational
работают в
stories
цифровой
for the
экономике,
people who are
или
already
все-таки
involved in
сознательно
the
идут в
digital
проекты, которые
economy,
связаны с
for the
цифровой
people
экономикой,
who are coming into such
устраивать?
projects?
Нужно ли это?
Do we
Но
need
я так
new
понимаю, что ответ на
educational
этот
capacities
вопрос
for them?
у
I
Нины
hope that the
есть.
question
Точно нужно.
will be
Но вот я
provided to
сейчас ей
us
слово
by
предоставлю,
Nina
мы об этом
Yanikina.
поговорим.
And
Чем
I'm
занимается
glad to
университет,
give
на
the
что вы
floor to her.
обращаете внимание
What is
именно
the
сейчас?
task of the
Нина,
university
прошу вас,
and what
слышите
they
ли
are
вы
doing?
нас?
Спасибо, да. Добрый день,
Oh,
уважаемые
thank you very
коллеги.
much.
Слышно меня?
Good day,
Очень
dear
хорошо.
colleagues, and we can hear.
Замечательно. Я постараюсь кратко, как я понимаю.
I will
нужно
try
уложиться
to
минут пять,
keep it
правильно?
short.
Хотелось
I
бы,
will keep it
спасибо,
under
да,
5
но
minutes.
чтобы и тему раскрыть.
Смотрите, коллеги, отвечая на заданный вопрос, на самом деле...
Answering this
что хотела
question,
сказать?
I would like to
Вообще,
say the following.
актуальность обучения и переобучения граждан,
The
она
necessity
нормально, да,
of
это у нас небольшой сбой,
providing
всё.
the training
Всё, всё,
to
продолжайте.
citizens
да, актуальность обучения и переобучения граждан, она,
and the
наверное,
importance of retraining people.
действительно стала
Well,
чуть
it
более
really has become more important,
критической,
more critically important, I would even say, in the COVID period, for the simple reason that
докладов уважаемых спикеров, действительно структура рынка, она
that the market structure has been changing, as was pronounced by many speakers.
по последним
Even if there were no COVID,
по разным данным от 4 до
we still see that
ежегодно
4 to 16 million people every year are looking for jobs. This means that 4 to 16 million people
года, 16 где-то по оценкам в течение года, кто бы
are participants of the labor market, and they are trying to find employment. This means that 4 to 16 million people need some tools for their professional orientation on matchmaking between the employer and the potential employee, and among the very different tasks that are faced by the University 2035. This is one of our priorities. Our work lies in reaching one important mission, i.e. Providing the possibility to the people in our country to develop in such a way so as to remain in maximum need and in maximum demand for the employers. Our university is quite young. We are operating for only 3 years. We are developing the educational products. We are working as an institution of development by training lots of people in a networking format. And we are doing that based on our own AI-based platform, which enables every single person to build their own educational environment and their learning curve on each step of their development. As an example, I would like to say what we are doing at the moment, and this will probably be an answer to a question that hasn't been asked yet. We are working with various formats. Are we going to shift to online completely? Are we going to have traditional offline courses any longer? Yes, we are working with universities in the Samara region as well to answer this question. We have lots of colleagues engaged in our programs. We have lots of applications to 2035 Archipelago program, which is aimed at thousands of startups working on artificial intelligence. And this all addresses the question of competences that we need to develop. A very important project indeed. Next thing, the data competences and digital competences, these also need to be focused. And of course, we mustn't forget that the soft skills are an area that really needs fostering. Digital as throughput skills, soft skills, and topical skills. Well, this triangle remains extremely important for the development of every specialist, and so it will in the future. I will skip some slides, which I really wanted to show you in the beginning because I'm pressed for time, but just to outline some things which are important for the regional agenda. The Archipelago program. The experiment on personal digital certificates, which we hope will reach out to 33,000 people across the country. This is the CLIck program, which is based on the Chief Digital Officers program, which was started last year. And we are working on various projects related with the assistance to universities and cooperation with universities of the country in order to develop new programs, new lines of our work, which also takes into account the specifics of the post-COVID thing. Only one thing is mentioned here on this slide is the educational franchise of the National Technological Initiative, but there will be a large project including networking master's courses, and there will be over 60 such programs which will implemented across the country. And we are always open for any other formats, and our cooperation with the regions on the level of regional universities, regional authorities, regional developmental institutions on project implementation related to digital competences as an alternative to the existing professional standards. And implementation of different recommendations that the University 2035 is implementing at the moment. These will help the regional educational institutions to implement a very effective educational product tailored to the learning curve of people in the regions. So this will probably complete my brief presentation. And I'll be glad to
Нина,
answer
спасибо большое.
your
Да, ну
questions.
мы, да, во-первых, еще с вами надолго не прощаемся. У нас еще впереди мероприятие по дистанционному подписанию разных соглашений. Я так забегая вперед. Но спасибо за краткость. Мы сейчас немножко дальше уже пойдем. Просто если будет возможность, то еще, конечно, вернемся к некоторым моментам, о которых вы сказали. Сейчас слово снова сюда, вот, в офлайн хотел бы передать Евгению Борисову, партнер ICAMA Flow,
who is partner with the Camouflow, it's the management company of the Venture Fund National Technological Initiative. Venture business in Russia, venture business in Russia.
Я бы сказал, что совсем тяжелых почти не летает.
What's the status? If it were the state corporations, public corporations, I'd say things were really bad. But what about, if you're a private foundation, you're a private fund, private VC, so it's not a legal aspect. So whether you can or cannot take the risk, it all depends on the country and the region, etc. So I'd like to ask you, as a representative of this type of business, obviously it's much demand. In Russia, though, it's still in its infancy. And I'd like to learn more about what needs to be done, where to invest. Speaking about the region, a smart region or any region of the sort. So the trends, the areas, the timeline, the timeliness, urgency, or let's say relevancy, a lot of issues, I'm sure, a lot of questions, but please try to address some of these questions. Let me give the floor to Evgeny.
Мне тогда дадут сигнал. Вот, сейчас слышу.
В итоге все финализируется вопросом, покажи конкретный проект, куда
boils down to the question as to how do you make 10x and how do you find these projects for the 10x. Offline, I can talk about that. Going to referring to the gist of the question, of course trends change and priorities of venture investors change. But I'd say that venture business, venture investment is a risk, obviously, by default. So maybe 10 to 15% of projects survive. On the other hand, it's the type of activity that, unfortunately, in our country is susceptible to fashion, to certain hot trends. So generally speaking, the universal answer as to where to invest is, of course, biotech, of course, medicine, healthcare, of course, education, and in the near future, not just in the country, but globally, in the global agenda, we will see growth of such investment. One of the speakers already touched upon the fact that we're probably witnessing a technological bubble. Maybe on the one hand, it's a good thing, because, of course, undoubtedly, it's no secret that up until recently, at least in Russia, early stage tech company deals in healthcare, we had very few of those. We had less than, let's say, I don't know, 5. So we're talking about tens of hundreds of millions of rubles. In the periphery, in the regions, the interest from investors was very low. It's not to say that we don't have interest, but tech investors were actually specialized in other industries. Now the focus is shifting. And so over the past 2 years, in our portfolio, we have 2 healthcare company deals. So many teams can raise money, which was not the case before the COVID-19. But on the other hand, there's a downside. So now we're discussing deals in traditional industries. We deal with composites companies that are in. We do that jointly with other investors. We see that in this new post-COVID era, the interest to classic industrial businesses is being slowed down. So now we're rolling back to the stance, well, let's see. We have distant, remote learning, we have healthcare. So there's a certain lack of attention to industrial solutions. That's what we witness. So we should mitigate this risk jointly. But by adding a focus on investment strategy by paying more attention to genetics, to healthcare, to medicine, to IT. We try not to overlook traditional industries, the so-called deep tech projects, first. Second, I believe that what I witness, what I see, in our portfolio we have many companies that deal with major corporate customers, major companies. We underestimate human reaction. Speaking of ordinary people, speaking of small, mid-sized businesses, we move to online, which may seem to be a forever trend, but I'm a bit skeptical about that, because in the spring of 2021, we may see this new vaccine will overcome this nightmare, and we'll forget about the Zoom conferences, etc. And so we should not underestimate this reaction, this feedback. So the task of VCs to see the seedlings of growth, these new behavioral patterns, to identify them and to retain them, and to continue working with them in the post-COVID era. So this is a new policy, a new trend, a new program. So to sum up, I noticed, mentioning the proposals from previous speakers, Kafushi said, God forbid, living in the times of change. Obviously, we are living in the times of change, and we see a multi-directional trend. On the one hand, there's global competition for huge cities, for major cities like Moscow and New York. There's competition. On the other hand, we no longer need to live. People no longer need to live close to let's say their educational institution, school or university or college. So these are contradicting trends. Nobody knows as to how that will play out. Obviously, it affects tech companies, retail, logistics, etc. Another typical trend is that there's globalization, global cooperation, healthcare project development. On the other hand, we have localization and import institutions. So what trend will win in 2021? We don't have. Obviously, we're guessing. It's guesswork. We don't know. We are searching for answers, and we try to be a bit more, let's say, attentive, and to look for more mature forms. So our task, our challenge is to predict such trends. Well, it's a bit spooky to me. If you don't know what will happen in your future, you're VC. So what do? We're living in pretty challenging times indeed. But the region, Samara region as an example, what are the strong points? I'm not referring to Samara region in particular, but let's say comparable regions with regions not Moscow, St. Petersburg, but let's say industry-heavy, advanced regions. At Camiflow, we manage two funds. One is a larger one, another one is smaller. One is a purely private fund, another one is a mixed one. So public-private. But 90% of our portfolio investments are the regional investments. In Moscow, we only have 2 deals, and 2 deals in St. Petersburg, and yet the balance goes to the regions. So in my view, this is topical. This will be topical in the next 2 to 3 years. And there are 2 fundamental advantages when working with regions. One is there's high concentration of R&D, research and development of engineering. In Moscow, or in many major cities worldwide, to identify a competitive core is difficult. It's much easier to do in a region. So you can have an overview and get feedback from the major R&D institutions in that region and to structure projects. So indeed, Samara has quite a good potential. It has a diversified economy. On the other hand, it has really advanced universities and colleges. In Samara, there's a good choice for investors. We work closely with Tolyatti State University. We look into certain projects, and we take pleasure in the fast responses and the feedback we get from them. That's the first fundamental advantage. Second, in large cities, let's say Moscow, you have abundance of venture money, venture funding, and of course people have a choice. Obviously, I mean the startups and projects, and they don't always go to Russian VCs; they go to international VCs. So sometimes you do a speculative deal just to make it for sake of making a deal, because the life cycle is 1 to 1.5 years, because it takes time to do due diligence, and sometimes you do a deal not because it's a good deal, but because you already started it. So in the regions, you have a more adequate approach because people have a more, let's say, realistic approach as to valuation, and people are ready to. So people actually do the hard work, and they don't go around VC conferences and show presentations, should give pitches. So these are the two competitive advantages that will continue to evolve, and we plan not just to roll back, but we plan to accelerate, to do more. We actually plan to open a branch in Novosibirsk. And so we're now going deeper into regions, and it starts to bear fruit. In Tomsk and Novosibirsk, we actually have many projects in our portfolio. We have some upcoming deals next year in the pipeline. So it's very pleasing to hear that you focus on the regions. You should focus on the regions. Many thanks, Evgeny. So I'd like to move back to online, and I'd like to give the floor to Ivan Fedotov, who's director of the Association for Innovative Regions of Russia. So we do have innovative regions of Russia that can be combined into an association, which is nice to hear. On the one hand, I think we should talk, as we mentioned several times during this session, we should be talking about the necessity or the need to localize certain things, but I believe we overlooked the aspect of interregional cooperation, which may be quite important from the aspect of from the standpoint of localization, but also from the standpoint of expanding expansion, not to limit yourself to a particular region. So how do Russian regions fare? I think it makes sense to discuss that. So I give the floor to you. Can you hear us? And I'm sure we'd like to hear you back. So.
Вот не сразу опять, да, не сразу слышно. Сейчас дадим звук.
Let's make sure we have the sound.
Сейчас еще разочек. Вот слышно все.
There you go. I think we can hear you now.
Включите, пожалуйста, микрофончик. У вас там кнопочка.
Switch on the mic, please. You have a button there
that, которая очень неплохо акции свои подняла вот за это время, дырки заделала в программе.
Obviously, we're using the software by a company that most people know about. And
Иван, нажмите там, да, у себя микрофончик.
Press that mic button.
Подсказывают, что у вас.
I believe that you haven't done so yet.
Или гарнитурку отключите, мне подсказывают тоже, что может быть такой момент. Не слышим мы вас, к сожалению.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Great. I'm more than happy to hear you because we've been able to see you. All right, great. So, yeah, I'll switch off my headset. So, dear colleagues, I'm happy to see all of you and those of you that I've actually had the pleasure to meet in the past. So going back to reverting back to your questions, it's no secret that Russian regions compete with each other in order to secure preferences, tax breaks, government orders, state orders, etc. But under the current economic situation and the grave, serious reduction in budget spending, when it comes to income reduction, the consolidation of interregional cooperation, especially given the fact of the development and operation of joint infrastructure, can be definitely be a growth point for fundraising and for promoting investment. We work in the association. We work on fostering relations between the regions at the federal level. In the spring of this year, during the restrictive measures amid the COVID-19, we helped implement the measures. And given the uncertainty of the regions, they've been able to exchange information about their decisions they made at the city level and the regional level. In addition to that, together with the governor, we lodged a proposal at the Russian Federation level to extend support measures and to improve special economic zones, SMEs. So some of these initiatives have been adopted. Some of these have been adopted and passed. These decisions were made back in June 2020. They helped lift restrictions, and there was a closed list of these measures. Speaking of the past 2 years, at the legislative level, a number of resolutions were made to improve the mechanism for interregional cooperation. In 2018, there was a horizontal subsidy law that permitted one region to render subsidies, extend subsidies, and subsidies to another region. In April of this year, there were some amendments to the budget, to the regional budgets at the interregional level. So it enabled one region to extend loans to other regions for the term of up to 3 years. So as we can see, we've expanded opportunities for interregional development. But as to the efficiency of that mechanism, I'm not sure, because resources of regions are not there anymore. Financial resources for self-sustaining, for self-financing, let alone extending loans to other regions, nearby regions. So I wanted to surprise you with the number. Regions now have to increase their debt burden, because the cumulative debt burden was 2.11 trillion rubles. In September, it was 2.15 trillion rubles. So my forecast is by the end of Q4 this year, at least 1 percentage point, this tax burden will grow at least 1 percentage point. So to say that regions will be financing each other, I believe, is a bit premature. It's not the case. So what we see is negative change and perspectives of the government spending, public spending at the federal level to implement investment projects. But nonetheless, the president of the Russian Federation and the government posed the task to launch a new investment cycle in regions to ensure this contribution into authorized capital, that growth to reach 5%, so that by 2020 investment account for 25 to 30% of GDP. So back in the so-called peaceful time, this was a challenging task. Now it's extremely difficult to achieve. But we do have to execute it. We do have to implement it. So together with ASI and the investment teams within the regions, we draft a legislative proposal to launch an investment cycle among subjects of the Russian Federation. We have a number of proposals, at least 3 proposals. One is to improve the mechanism of the investment and tax rebates for the tax breaks for the profit tax. It's been dormant since 2018, but it's not been popular. The issue was that when you have that tax break, tax deduction, there are incomes that fall out. So nobody resolved the issue of the compensations. There are limitations as to types of economic activity. We propose to lift these restrictions. We also propose the dynamics for attraction of residents in the advanced economic zones. A few numbers. Out of 17 regions with an association, we created that into 15 of those. The advantage of TASR is the tax breaks for the insurance compensations. But this benefit is only valid for 3 years since the inception. So out of 27, this term is the 3 years that expired, and in 14 of them, that term expires this year. So it turns out that this mechanism is popular among investors, but only for the first 3 years. So we have to put forth proposals to extend these benefits to at least a 10-year period for new investors. And obviously, this is a mechanism that 2 days ago, the Minister of Economic Development put forth to the President for the capital investment protection, the mechanism for capital investment protection. And last week, we passed the first bylaw. But there's a lot of issues when it comes to synchronization with regional authorities, and there's a lot of work to do. But obviously, we stand for the engagement of regions to create that regional regulatory database, regulatory framework. To sum up, the conclusion is very simple. There's no money, but we should not be looking forward to new money. There are conditions to foster, to develop the investment climate. Obviously, we have new opportunities because during in the period where you're lacking funds, lacking money, and you have to look for ways, look for sources, you do have new opportunities and the window of opportunity. So that's about it in short.
Спасибо. Спасибо большое, Иван. Да, ну, право, абсолютно. Единственное, скажу, что мы, когда нам сложнее, почему-то это лучше выполняем, чем когда, знаете, нормальные условия, как у всех.
When things are really complicated, we are more successful than when everything is okay. So there is hope that we will be able to pull ourselves together and to fulfill these ambitious tasks which are really surpassing our opportunities, as our president used to say once. We are now in the context of advanced mobilization. I'm giving the floor to Dmitry Bogdanov, Minister of Economic Development and Investment of the Samara region, to try and sum up the findings and conclusions of our plenary session. What will be the main or two main areas for our advance? Speaking about the regional economy, what would be your thoughts? What are some of the tasks that you are posing for the nearest future? Yes, Alexei, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of really drawing the line under this session. In the past couple of years, we have seen so many changes that we find it really very interesting to live in this era of changes. Our team really sees it as a giant window of opportunities, but of course, the challenges are there, and they are a great stimulant. I would like to thank all of our speakers. I would like to thank all of the friends of the Samara region and to the people who do quite a lot for the development of the country. Arkady Dvorkovich, Natalia Trunova, Denis Zhuravsky, Nina Yanikina, Ivan Fedotov, Oleg Teplov. These are the people who are the track setters for some of the things that we're going to continue discussing today and some things that we're going to analyze in more detail. It's great that all the forum participants can connect at different moments of our forum. So please join us, and it will be a very useful experience. Coming back to the question, I jotted down some areas of development that we're going to discuss in our sessions today. Innovative development, venture, are the possibilities for changes, some of the points of growth for investment. What will Samara region focus specifically? Two areas of advances. First is, in the conditions of these changes, the state and the Samara region sees the ever-growing role of partnership with businesses. This element of public-private partnership, which is directly provided for by federal laws and by partnership between different players in these sectors. We see investors, we see businesses, from processing industries to infrastructural players. We know that the risks are to be shared. Our region really ranks the first in some aspects in the culture of public-private partnership, in normative regulation, in non-conventional tools, and in the possibilities of becoming a guaranteeing partner who will definitely keep up and respect all of the obligations. This is a very important factor of our development. Point two, that has also been referred to by our colleagues, is the concentration of new possibilities for the young people, for the citizens, for the innovative sector of economy.
локальных городов будущего, локальных районов будущего.
For the local cities of the future, Tolyatti and the side of Zhiguli Valley, we already have over 2,000 young and highly initiative people who are creating future today. And in Tolyatti, we see the possibilities for developing a smart city that will provide a new level of life for the city of Tolyatti. The city of Samara, together with Tolyatti, which form the third largest agglomeration after Moscow and St. Petersburg, in the city of Samara, we are developing the territory around the Samara arena. It was a huge international competition where the leading architectural design bureaus participated, and we finally found a winning project which will become the basis for the smart city Samara, with complex development, complex student campus, scientific and production organizations, which will become a new point of growth for highly initiative young people of the region who will be able to change the world around them and to change people around them. These are two major points of growth that we see. Of course, we will comply with all the requirements. The era of changes needs to be analyzed, and the changes in it need to be supported. We, of course, will need the guarantees from the state, and all the investors will enjoy them. And I would like to take this opportunity and thank all of the speakers present here and working with us. I would like to thank everybody from our side, to both of our online and offline speakers. This is not the end of our plenary session. Afterwards, we'll have two tracks, the track on investment and the track on ventures. The investment track will keep on working here, and the venture investment will work on the ground floor. The volunteers will help you to find your way to the second room. Today we are making a small pause.
Небольшой такой фуршетик, что-то перекусить до следующей сессии. Это фойе. Но у нас еще вот в соседнем зале будет подписание соглашения, в котором будут участвовать Дмитрий Богданов, Дмитрий Пашков, это проректор по информатизации Самарского университета. Ну и дистанционно, как говорится, на том конце провода будет Нина Яникина и университет 2035. И тут у нас два соглашения на очереди. Вот я все проанонсировал. Давайте встретимся либо на этой сессии, либо на другой по венчурным инвестициям через меньше, чем час, ну, минут через 45-50, вот так вот. И сейчас всех приглашаю на подписание.
You are very welcome to look at the signature ceremony. Thank you very much, and see you later.
Да.